Hey guys, and welcome to my channel. As you can see, my profile picture and original character have changed. A while back, during my time away from YouTube, I had some issues on my side of the world. Issues that go from what can be seen on the web to something personal between my family and me. We've had issues regarding property and the sorts, which also brings me to another topic. Right now, I'm in the part of my journey where I want to evolve my channel even further. However, to do so, I need to upgrade my gear, including my personal computer and software usage. So, to reach that level of monetization, I decided to upload tons of what-if videos about whatever you guys wrote in the comment section, though not in the visual platform since I'm already busy with one. All stories upcoming and plans will be posted on Patreon, with the paid members getting everything a week earlier. And to represent my new change into my channel, I sent a request for a commission to a deviant artist, who after a bit of conversing, found him to be a trustworthy person to send my description for my original character, who I call Goto Black. With all that announced, today, I bring you What If Godzilla Was in Attack on Titan. Once again, a year has passed, and a world once filled with titans, ancient beasts now mark their return to the world, but can mankind live in this new world while another change will take place? Who is friend and who is enemy? And what will this mean for the rogue titan shifter, Eren, and the great predator Godzilla? The story is called Godzilla x Titan 3 All Out Strike. The link of both the story and the author will be in the description down below. If you guys want more what-if videos such as these, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more.
Chapter 18, The Wrath of the King. Eren opened his eyes. He found himself in a strange location. All around him are strange-looking trees. He thought he was in the forest, but as he looked again he saw to his wonder the vast ocean. He remembered the first time he saw it, near the edge of the second human settlement. Eren looked down at his feet and noticed his footprints. The one he made was completely different from his own foot. Instead of leaving a 5-toed print, it was 3-toed, like a lizard. Eren looked at his feet again. Yes, 5 toes. He put his foot down again and lifted it up and yes, another 3-toed footprint. Before Eren could question what was going on, a bright light shined across the ocean. Eren looked at the light, but as soon as it appeared the light was gone. All Eren could see was a cloud in the distance. A large mushroom cloud. Then from it a rush of clouds started heading towards Eren. As it got near, Eren could feel a strong heat coming. Eren tried to turn away, but the heat was soon strong. He could feel his skin boil. All he could do was let out a scream of pain from the heat. Eren rose up fast from the bed. He was sweating all over. That dream, it felt so real. Eren noticed something different. The room he was in was metal, not wood. Then it came back to him, after the talks with the Gotengo crew. As a sign of good faith, Eren, Armin, and Mikasa chose to stay on the ship for the night, and Captain Gordon, Nick Tatopoulos, and chose to stay in one of the empty houses that is still intact from the attack. Eren stood up slowly from the bed, still very shaken from the dream. Then came a knock on the door. "Eren, are you alright?" It was Armin. "Eren?" "Yes, I'm fine," Eren responded, "just a nightmare. You can come in if you want." About that, Eren," Armin started, "I forgot how to open this thing." Eren thought for a moment. "I think it's the green button." As he said that, the door opened. Armin paused, seeing the door slide to the left. "You would think, being inside the Nebulan ship, I would be used to things like that," Armin said, entering the room. "Maul and Laura are here to see Mickey," Armin said, sitting down on the bed. Eren turned to him. "How is she?" Armin smiled, but his face still held a worry look. "They told me she is alright, but she hasn't woken up yet. But they say she might soon." Eren smiled and patted his friend's shoulder. Then Eren went to put on the clothes he brought with him on the ship. "So did you check on Mikasa if she was awake?" Eren asked. "Actually, I don't think she even went to sleep," Armin answered. "Really?" Eren asked, concerned. "You sure?" Armin nodded. I went outside the ship and saw Mikasa standing on top where she was last night, still watching for any signs of the Nebulans. You know, Mikasa has been acting weird lately. Eren sighed. I've noticed. When I looked at her eyes, it's like I'm looking at a complete stranger. Armin gave Eren a small smile. I don't think she's changed that much. You know, when we first met she kinda scared me. They both shared a laugh, then it slowly died. Armin rubbed his hands in concern. So what's going to happen now? Armin asked. Eren paused as he put on his shirt. What do you mean? Armin turned to Eren. I mean, are we going to fight the Nebulans? Of course, Armin, said Eren, they want to make us slaves. Of course we have to fight them. But Eren, you saw firsthand what they can do, Armin replied. Now they have kaiju of their own. Kaiju more deadly than we have ever encountered. Eren rubbed the back of his neck. Well, we have the Gotengo and its crew. They've fought them before. But there were more people with them, and the Nebulans had time to prepare for them. Who knows what they might have now? Armin stood up and looked at him. Eren. I saw Fumio teleport Reiner to their ship. Eren looked at him in shock. After all of this, he completely forgot the mission of finding Reiner and the other Titan shifters. What happened to the other Titan shifters? Eren asked. Sonda managed to help us, but the other two got away, Armin answered. Eren slammed his fist in his hand in anger. Eren, what are we going to do? Armin asked. Eren looked back at his friend, then continued to put his clothes on. Once he was finished, he walked to the door, but not before looking back at his friend. Armin, has Captain Gordon returned to the ship? Not yet, I think he's still talking to Levi. Why? Armin looked at Eren's face, seeing him thinking of an idea and trying to see if it would work. Then Eren looked at him again and said, I think I have an idea. 4 eyes. Control yourself. But I just can't help it, Levi, shouted Hang in a tone similar to ecstasy. I'm still not over all of this. A different world. New kaijus that we might never see, and how humanity has grown without titans. Hang then pointed to Jet Jaguar, and this thing. Just look at it. Not a human. Not a titan, and definitely not a kaiju. One could almost see her drooling as she gazed at Jet Jaguar. She raised her hand to touch him, but the robot grabbed her hand. BYYOIA. Rokuro stood by Jet Jaguar. He says don't touch. Then Hang grabbed Rokuro's shoulders and started shaking him. You made him. You can understand him. Tell me how you did it. Hang shouted and shook him in excitement. Duas she de Thais a lutet? Rokuro said as Moblet tried to get Hang off of the boy. Yes, said Levi. Then Jet Jaguar grabbed both Hang and Moblet by their shirts just as Hang let go of Rokuro. Casually, Jet Jaguar tossed them both out of the house. Okay, I deserve that, shouted Hang from outside. I didn't. Cried Moblet. As I was saying, said Levi, sitting down in the chair around the table with Captain Gordon, Ozaki, Kazama, and Dr. Shiragami. What do you think the Nebulans are going to do now? Since now we know the truth. Gordon rubbed his chin. Thing is, kid, I'm surprised that they haven't done anything now. Indeed. It seems strange, said Dr. Shiragami. Normally when they find us or the location one of our allies, they attack without warning. Perhaps they are developing a new weapon of some sorts, Nick pondered. They do have enough time on their hands. I doubt they've got anything we haven't seen, said Rokuro with pride. With Gotengo and Jet Jaguar we can take them, right buddy? BYYOIA. What do you mean, don't be overconfident? Alright then. Levi spoke. You think that ship of yours can destroy that ship and the rest of the swarm? Well, the Gotengo was originally man-made, started Dr. Shiragami, but we have upgraded it with Nebulan technology. The drill, which we call the bow drill, is made with the hardest no material that we found. It can penetrate even the hardest of steel and stone, said Nick, but we are low on missiles and I don't know about the absolute zero cannon. Then the door slammed open and Hang came running back in and looked at Nick right in the face. What's that? Nick, noticing that Hang was uncomfortably close, moved slightly away from her. Well, the absolute zero cannon can. Well, to put it simple, it can freeze anything it hits instantly. Wow! Hang yelled, "Did I ever mention that I love you guys?" "Don't think you ever stopped telling us," said Gordon. Anyway, back on topic. We still have enough weapons to attack, but real damage has to be on the inside. Levi raised an eyebrow. "You want to attack the mothership?" "The drill is strong enough to pierce it." "Then we can fire the cannon and destroy it," said Gordon. Then he got off the chair and started walking towards the door, "But we need to make preparations." Gordon pointed to the two scientists. "Nick, Shiragami, I want you to find Ozaki or Kazama, tell them to meet me in the briefing room on the ship." Then he pointed to Rokuro. "Kid, I want you and the robot to keep watch for any signs of those bugs." Rokuro saluted. "Yes, Captain." Then Rokuro paused. "But Captain, his name is Jet Jaguar." "I told you once and I'll tell you again, I will never call it that." Then Gordon left the room with Levi walking by him. "So you're in your what? Early 30s? Gordon asked. Levi looked at him. "What does that have to do with anything?" "Nothing," Gordon said. "I can tell life with giant man-eating humans was hell, huh? Now it gets worse with kaijus and aliens." Levi thought for a moment. "Well, as long as they can be killed, I don't very much have a problem with them." Gordon laughed for a moment. "You know, I think I'm starting to like you, kid." Levi didn't look at him. "I might like you too if you stop calling me kid." Gordon chuckled to himself at Levi's attitude. It reminded him of his younger days back in the military. Gordon looked up. The sky was filled with dark clouds, meaning that soon it was going to rain. It always rains when something bad is about to happen. At least that's his opinion on the matter. As they walked, Gordon noticed some of the townsfolk trying to repair and clean up any damages left during the attack. On his suggestion, some of the crew agreed to help with the cleanup, but many of the townsfolk were cautious of them. Then, to Gordon's surprise, nearly if not all of the people were helping Sasha treat Anguirus's wounds. "People helping a monster," he whispered to himself. "Never thought I'd see something like that." Soon they entered the ship. Gordon went ahead towards the briefing room but stopped along with Levi when they reached the sick bay, where Maul and Laura stood in front of the window looking at Mickey still sleeping with a bandage wrapped around her head. Gordon and Levi stood by them, and it seems only Laura noticed them while Maul just kept looking at Mickey. "Well, how is she doing?" Levi asked. "The doctor said that she is better and that she should wake up by now." Laura looked at Mickey and gave a worried expression. "I'm just worried how she got that way in the first place. I heard it was due from reusing her telepathic abilities by brining that large worm thing," said Gordon. Laura shook her head. "No, it had to be something else. She drove and summoned kaijus before and she never had any trouble like this happen before." Laura turned to Maul for confirmation on this, but her mind was on something else. Levi walked to them. "Anyway, I need you both to tell the people of Tanakibo about all this once again. They've been giving Gordon here and his people nasty looks, and we all know where that leads." Laura nodded and was about to follow Levi when she noticed Maul did not move from her spot. Maul looked at Laura, her expression low. "Go on ahead, I'll catch up later." Laura was about to say something, but instead she led Levi and herself out of the ship, leaving Gordon and Maul by the sick bay. Gordon looked at Maul, then at Mickey. "You not just thinking about your friend there, are you?" Maul looked at him as he glanced back at her. "You don't have to be a mind reader to figure that out." Maul turned back with a sigh. "I just thought, everyone thought that the great Godzilla came from Deliverance. That he was the champion that was sent to free us from the Titans. But when the Nebulans and you guys came out of the same strange formation in the sky, I mean that portal thing, and when you told us how you used to have a Godzilla, You are questioning your faith, huh?" Gordon said. Maul lowered her head sadly. "Our faith was not always no. In the beginning we kept it to ourselves and practice in secret. Living in the walls, you either worship them or consider yourself a heretic and be ready to be hit with stone. Not to mention keeping our abilities a secret. Who knows what might have had happened then." Maul looked back at Mickey. "When Wall Maria first fell, Mickey used her powers to protect me and Laura from the Titans. We lost our family but gained a new one." Gordon listened as Maul continued. "Soon it was just the three of yous practicing in the beliefs of Deliverance, and when Godzilla came we thought it was a sign. After that it gave Mickey enough courage to tell everyone about us and about Deliverance. Not many people listened, but we had enough followers to leave and start our own town. But now, after hearing everything, I just don't know what to believe in anymore. Moll wiped a small tear from her face after that. You know, Gordon began, where I come from we have more than 2 religions and no one has a clue which one is the right one. Moll looked at Gordon again, trying to figure out what he was trying to say. But I'll tell you this, Gordon said, I've seen some strange things before those bugs came, and so has the rest of the world. Back then nobody believed in giant monsters, but now we find ourselves living in a world filled with lost discovered civilizations with a sea dragon god, creatures we thought were long dead, and don't get me started on that flying turtle. Flying turtle? Moll said, confused. Gordon dismissed it. Doesn't matter, the point I'm trying to make is sometimes we don't know what is real and what is not. I don't even know how all this Titan thing began, and I don't know how that Godzilla got here. Hell, maybe it was brought here by your deliverance or something. Gordon then looked at Moll and smiled. Other than that, your faith gives people here hope, and I say if that is what your religion does, then I think I might take a crack at it. Moll smiled at that Gordon's kind words and slowly started to bring back her faith. By the way, Gordon said, I was told that boy you brought started waking up in that cell. You might want to check up on him. Moll gasped. Sonda, she almost forgot about him. She quickly said thank you and ran off to leave the ship. Gordon was about to leave too, but then he noticed Eren running towards him. Eren Yeager, right? What's your hurry? Eren took a breath after running all over the ship. I was actually looking for you, Eren said. Listen, you said that you plan on using your ship to attack them, right? Gordon nodded. Well, wouldn't they expect that now? Yeah, but it's not like we have much of a choice, Gordon replied, but hopefully that tin can might provide a distraction first. That robot can handle just about anything for a while. But from what Armin told me, they might have new kaijus at their command. Also they have one of our enemies and they might try and improve him. Eren said, you said that is what they do, improve kaijus to make them powerful? Like what they did to that guy Gan? Gordon nodded. Yeah, but what do you suggest we do about it? Eren then answered, why don't we use Godzilla? Gordon looked at Eren as if he just said a stupid question. What? Eren said with assurance, listen, if we can get Godzilla to attack the Nebulans, they will focus more on him than the Gotengo. Oh, and how do you suppose we get him to do it? Ask him. Gordon spoke sarcastically. Eren continued despite the sarcasm, if Mickey is not awake soon, then perhaps Maul and Laura could use their telepathy to talk to him and... Kid, I'm going to stop you right there. Gordon held out his hand. Your heart is in the right place, but that is an impossible idea. What? Eren said, no, listen, he help us before he can do it again and... Look kid, if that lizard is anything like the one we used to have, then it won't help anyone, Gordon said firmly. That thing only sees humans the way we see a bug. Eren thought for a second on that. Maybe he's right, maybe Godzilla won't help them. Thinking back, maybe the reason why Godzilla went back to attack Berlot was for revenge. Then Eren looked back at the bed where Mickey lays, then back at Gordon. You may be right, but I still know I know he will help. Why? What makes you say that? Gordon asked. Cause. I have hope, Eren responded. True, maybe Godzilla really doesn't care about what happens to us. Maybe he is like the one your world used to have, but he gives people here that yours did not. Hope. Hope that the nightmare that humanity has lived through for many years will end, that humans can live outside the walls without fear of being eaten. True, we have kaijus now, but we have shown we can communicate with them and have them as our allies. You may not know what it's like to live in the walls, to be afraid of what's out there, but I for one am tired of it. I want humanity to spread and be free without fear, and I will not let the Nebulans make us live in fear again. Eren stopped for a moment and took a breath. When my mother was killed, I wanted revenge and wipe out every last Titan. Then when I found out I could turn into one, I thought I was humanity's last and only hope, but when Godzilla came and managed to destroy more Titans than I ever could, I thought I had no purpose, that he is the real hope. And he is, Eren said with determination. Despite what you say and think, Godzilla is the last hope for humanity now more than ever, and with your help or not, I am going to get him to attack the Nebulans and help free humanity once again. The hall was silent. Gordon just looked at Aaron and he looked back, then the sound of the sickbay door opening as they turned around. Mickey, wide awake, came out of the door holding her head with one hand. You know, Aaron, we still got to work on your indoor voice. I can hear you from right inside. Mickey said, smiling. Mickey. Aaron said in shock. He went to Mickey, making sure she was steady. Are you feeling all right? Mickey groaned while holding her head. I'm fine, but please lower your voice a little. I still have a major headache. Mickey stood up straight and walked out the door, but I did manage to hear everything and I would like to help. Mickey looked at Gordon. What do you think, Captain? Gordon looked at her and at Aaron. He seized the determination on both of their faces. He put his hand on the bridge of his nose. Oh, Pa? You know this plan is crazy. But I've done crazy before. Mal entered the jail as she stands in front of the cell guarded by 2 townsmen that volunteered to watch the prisoner. Okay, I can handle this, Mal said. The 2 guards were about to object, but after seeing the look Mal gave them, they decided not to argue with her and left. As they left, Mal looked at the prisoner in the cell. Sonda, his hands completely tied up, preventing him from biting himself and transforming. Sonda was sitting down and facing away from her. Sonda, Mal said, but Sonda did not respond to her. Mal frowned, but she understood. She pulled up a chair and sat down. For what a minute no words were said, but Sonda turned his head, glancing sadly at Mal. Mal smiled at him, then he looked away. HHH, how can you still smile at me? I lied to you. Made you think I was one of you. I would under STST stand if you were going to kill me. Sonda instantly froze when he felt Mal's hand touching his shoulder. Sonda, you had every opportunity to escape and let the others be killed by the other Titan, Mal started, but you didn't. Armin told me how you fought the other shifter, who was your own brother no less. Sonda did not respond to her, then she removed her hand from his shoulder. Then he heard the cell door opened. Sonda turned around, seeing Mal with the door open. Sonda, I won't lie. I felt betrayed when I found out who you really are, and I won't promise the people won't look at you badly. Sonda lowered his head, but Mal gently lifted his chin to face her. Now I want to know something. When you first came to Tanakibo, Mal said in a serious tone, everything you did for helping me and everyone else, was that a part of some secret plan to attack us, or were you really happy here? Sonda looked into Mal's eyes and he blushed when he noticed just how close their faces were to each other, but Sonda chose to ignore this and answered her. I am happy here. With you. Mal smiled while a small blush appeared on her cheeks, but she quickly hid it by hugging Sonda tightly. Who are they? Can they be trusted? They attacked the great predator. All right, everyone calm down, shouted Laura. Listen, it is a lot to talk about our new arrivals, and it is complicated, but they mean us no harm, and as for what happened with God, I mean the great predator, it was a misunderstanding and… Laura was interrupted when a blue beam came down signaling the arrival of possible Nebulans. Instead, to the surprise of both Laura and Levi, when the beam faded, instead of an orange-suited dead body wearing Nebulan, there instead stood Father Monroe. Monroe? Levi said. My friends, my fellow humans, smiled Monroe, I bring word from our Nebulan friends. Did Monor just call the Nebulan's friend, said Marlowe as he and Hitch stood with the crowd of people. I did not know he could smile, said Hitch. Monroe, what are you doing here? Laura asked as she cautiously approaches him along with Levi. Our friends have become aware of what has just happened here. You're talking about the attack, Levi said. Funny how they did not try to help us out. Monroe smiled wide. Well, our friends can't be everywhere, can they? Monroe saw Levi ready to pull out his blade. Is there something wrong, Captain? You tell me, Levi said as Hang and Moblet stood by him. Monroe was about to speak but froze when he saw the Gotengo. Pretty nice looking, don't you think, said Hang. You know, if I did not know any better, it looks to me you recognize it? Monroe swallowed nervously. Well, I don't know what it is, but… Oh, is that right? Monroe turned around fast, seeing a big group consisting of Captain Gordon, Ozaki, Kazama, Rokuro, Jet Jaguar, Aaron, and Mickey. Mal and Sonda soon arrived just as Monroe started moving back slowly. Tin Can, Gordon said to Jet Jaguar, is he a bug? Jet Jaguar stared at Monroe for a second, then he looked at Gordon and gave him a thumbs up. "BYYYA. Rokuro said to Gordon, Jet said. I heard. Gordon quickly pulled out a gun and fired at Monroe's chest, causing him to fall on his knees. The crowd gasped in shock and fear while the rest of the Survey Corps tried to calm everyone down. Monroe held his chest as green blood fell from the hole in his chest. Then he started twitching, his whole body started twisting and expanding. Wait, what's happening? Armin said, joining the group. I've seen this before, Aaron said, and it is not good. Monroe gazed at them with an inhuman look, and soon what was once a human appearance now stands the true Nebulan form. At once people started screaming at the sight of the alien's true form. Oh my god, Marlowe's eyes widened. He's a bug, said Hitch in shock and disgust. Suddenly the Nebulan's back opened up to form wings like a ladybug and flew quickly at Gordon's group with claws ready to kill. But before it could get close, a swift blur moved past it and the alien stopped dead in its tracks. Aaron blinked and saw Mikasa with her blades out standing right behind the Nebulan. Then the alien's head fell off and the body split in two and fell to the ground. Mikasa put the blades back in and walked towards the body. Aaron watched her and almost noticed her eyes changing color. Well, Gordon said, if they did not know we were here, they know now. I want to know one thing, Levi said, addressing to the group inside the Gotengo. Why is he out of his cell? Levi pointed to Sonda sitting next to Maul. He helped us back in the woods, he is not with Reiner anymore, Maul argued. Everyone please let us focus more on what is important right now, said Mickey. Levi looked at Sonda and sighed, you're right. So the Monroe we saw was a Nebulan, said Hang. That means they killed the real one. That is usually how they do things, said Kazama. I'm sorry, was he a friend, said Miyuki. Not really, said Jean. Anyway, we got a plan, said Gordon. It is not a sane plan though. Captain, when has that ever stopped us, said Ozaki. What is it? Gordon looked at his men and at the others. We're going to use Godzilla. The room was filled with an awkward silence. Excuse me, said Miyuki. Who's Godzilla? Asked Marlowe. Tell you later, said Jean as Gordon continued. From what Sagusa said, she can use her telepathy to try and get Godzilla to attack the Nebulans. Hopefully they will be distracted from attacking him then at us. That sounds risky, said Shiragami. What if it doesn't work? I've managed to contact him before, said Maul, and Miss Sagusa is much better with speaking to kaijus than me and Laura. She can do it. Gordon continued, anyway that is the first step, the rest I need to speak with you too. Gordon pointed at Levi and Hang. Then he looked at Mickey, before we start it would be better if you find Godzilla right now. Mickey nodded, I'll need a small amount of people to go with me, maybe 4 at the most. I'll go with you, said Armin. So will I, said Aaron. Where Aaron goes I'll go, said Mikasa. Didn't we already do a search mission already, said Jean. Yes, but this time the rest of us will stay here while Jaeger, Arlert, and Ackerman go with them, said Levi. You will be going with them, Ozaki, said Gordon, then pointed Rokuro, you too, kid. Rokuro smiled, really, why? How else are they going to understand your robot? Gordon pointed at Jet Jaguar. Better to have extra muscles. But what if the Nebulans try to attack here, said Miyuki. We still have Gorosaurus with us, said Maul. And Sasha said that Anguirus is starting to get better. So he might be able to help. And SSOWW will I, said Sonda. Are we sure he should not be tied up now, or better yet dead, said Hitch. It's just like Ms. Sagusa said, Hitch, said Marlowe. We have other things to worry about, and he did help us. Hitch just watched Sonda carefully while Sonda twiddled his fingers. All right then, enough talk. Gordon said, looking at Mickey, we better start now. Outside the ship, Jet Jaguar stood far away from them as he started increasing his size up to 50 meters. How does he do that? Said Armin, looking up at the robot in amazement. That would take too long to explain, said Rokuro. Oh, and I would need a PowerPoint. Armin raised an eyebrow. Power what? Come, let's get going, said Ozaki. Then Jet Jaguar lowered himself down and placed his hand down in front of them. Ozaki walked up first and lifted Rokuro up, Mickey was about to follow when Aaron tapped on her shoulder. "Mickey, I've been meaning to ask. How did you get knocked out?" Aaron asked. Mickey scratched her head and thought, "I don't know. I remember sending you that message, but after that, I just can't remember." Mikasa looked at Mickey, then walked to the robot's hand while scratching her head. Soon the small group was sitting down safely on the robot's palm. Jet Jaguar gently brought his hand close to his chest and stood up. "So how does he fly?" said Aaron. Rokuro smiled. "Now that I can explain. You see, he..." But before he could say anything, Jet Jaguar leaped up to the sky and started flying towards the forest. Rage. Complete total rage, that is all that Godzilla could feel right now. All day and night Godzilla searched for more titans to destroy. He managed to blast, smash and rip apart every titan he could find, but now there was no more titans to find. Godzilla found himself in a large open field outside the forest and a lake nearby. Godzilla was about to enter it, but then the images came back and the pain as well. Godzilla grabbed his head in rage and pain as he let out a roar. "Screo unkink. Well, look at what we found." At the forest edge, Gabara and Gara watched Godzilla from a distance. Finally payback time, Gabara cracked his knuckles. "You thinking of fighting that thing again?" said Gara. "'Cause you did so well last time. Why do you think we brought them?" Gabara pointed to a horde of titans looking rather anxious as they looked at Godzilla. "Those mindless things always go for that lizard when it is near," Gabara said. "When they attack it and it gets weak, I'll be able to finish it off." Gabara patted Gara's back, "And when it's dead, you can have all the tasty flesh you want." Gara's mouth watered. "I was right to stick with you. You know how I think." Gabara chuckled. "Good, just stay right here and watch for any unwelcome guests while I go to work." Gabara raised his hand and bite down hard. Godzilla was about to enter the lake, but then a green lighting struck the ground across from him. Godzilla turned to the source, and there stands the Titan ogre Gabara. Godzilla remembered seeing him before. Godzilla roared at the ogre, but Gabara roared back. Then Gabara pointed at Godzilla, and all at once titans from abnormal to pure titan all charged at Godzilla. Godzilla ignored Gabara just as the titans appeared. Godzilla let out a roar as lightning struck his dorsal plates, then he fired his atomic beam at the horde. The beam managed to obliterate some of the smaller ones, but many still remained and still charging. Two of the abnormal titans jumped and latched themselves onto Godzilla's arms. Godzilla roared in pain as the two abnormals started biting down hard at his arms. Godzilla tried to get them off, but then more titans started climbing on his back while others started biting at his legs. A few titans started falling down dead after swallowing a piece of Godzilla's flesh, but where one fell others took their place and so on. Gabara laughed at Godzilla's struggle. Then Gabara started marching towards him. Godzilla did not notice him coming due to the titans' continued attack. Then Gabara punched Godzilla hard in the face, knocking him down and crushing a few titans in the process. Gabara roared in laughter at his down opponent. Then his horn blowed and Gabara grabbed Godzilla's tail and then released a surge of electricity at his body. Godzilla roared in pain over the electricity and could hardly move due to it. Then with remarkable strength Gabara lifted Godzilla up in the air and slammed him down twice, then tossed him to the ground. Gabara laughed at this action. Then Godzilla rose up and started turning to Gabara when more titans launched themselves onto him. Godzilla tried to charge his atomic beam, but due to the titans keep biting onto him, Godzilla became unfocused, making Gabara punch him again. "Looks like it's going to rain," said Armin. Ozaki looked up at the sky. "In my line of work, that is usually a bad sign." Aaron looked around the area on Jet Jaguar's hand. Aaron glanced at Mikasa, still feeling a slight unease around her. He wanted to ask her but wanted to avoid her new sudden outburst. "Mickey, do you think you can feel Godzilla?" Armin asked. "There are too many mines down there," Mickey said, rubbing her head. "Possible due to the other kaijus," Mikasa answered. "Byyyya." Everyone covered their ears as the robot spoke. "Jet, how many times do I have to say it? Don't talk to people while you're big," Rokuro shouted. As soon as hearing came back to them, Ozaki asked, "What did he say?" "He said he found Godzilla, but he is not alone," Rokuro said. Jet Jaguar flew towards where his scanners detected Godzilla. Soon he reached the destination and landed softly near the forest edge. Jet Jaguar placed his hand down so the others can get off. They saw both Gabara and Titans attacking Godzilla. "Look at all those Titans," said Armin. "And that one is Gabara, the other Titan shifter. He seems to be giving the Titans orders," said Ozaki. "We have to help Godzilla," Eren said, pulling his hand out, but Mickey grabbed his hand. "Eren, there are too many Titans. I doubt you and Mikasa could able to handle all that." "Don't worry guys," said Rokuro, "Jet can handle them." Rokuro shouted at Jet Jaguar, "Go Jet Jaguar! Fight, fight, fight!" Jet Jaguar gave them a thumbs up and charged at Gabara. Gabara was about to strike Godzilla again but was kicked in the head by Jet Jaguar. Gabara got up and roared in rage in the unwelcome addition while Jet Jaguar took a fighting stance. Gabara charged at the robot and Jet Jaguar gave him a judo flip. As the Ogre Titan came down, Jet Jaguar ran to the down Godzilla. Jet Jaguar grabbed a few of the Titans and tossed them like rag dolls off of him. When a few off, Godzilla rose up to his feet. Godzilla roared at Jet Jaguar while the robot just raised both hands as if telling him to calm down. Gara saw all this and was about to transform when he saw something in the sky. Armin's eyes widened. "Everyone, I think we got company." Jet Jaguar flinched and tired to alert Godzilla, but the king of the monsters just roared at him in rage. Godzilla was about to unleash his atomic beam as Jet Jaguar moved to the side but not to dodge the upcoming beam. As Godzilla was about to fire, something large flew by him and cut his neck, resulting in blood spewing out his neck like a fountain. Godzilla fell down and the creature that attacked him landed on 4 of the smaller pure Titans. Gigan has just arrived. Gigan looked down at Godzilla. He had found his target. Gigan fired his cluster light beam at Godzilla, causing more damage to him. Jet Jaguar charged at Gigan, but when he got close, Gigan jumped and teleported, causing the robot to pause his attack and try to look for his enemy. Gabara finally got up and roared after seeing Jet Jaguar. He was about to charge, but then Gigan appeared in front of him facing away. Quickly, Gigan let out a flamethrower from his mouth, striking Jet Jaguar's back. Gabara roared at the other newcomer but was ignored. Getting enraged, Gabara's horn glowed and was about to grab him for an electric surge, but when he got close, as quick as a flash, Gigan turned and sliced his sidearm across Gabara. A second later, Gabara's head fell off and the body fell on his back while the healing process started. Jet Jaguar readied himself for an attack, then Gigan raised both arms and the undersides of the claws let out a dual grappling hook on each arm and started wrapping around Jet Jaguar. "It's Gigan," said Ozaki. "That's new addition. Who knows what else he might have." Eren glared at the battle. "Okay, I'm going in." Eren was about to transform, but Mickey shouted, "Wait, look at Godzilla." Everyone looked at where Godzilla fell. Instead of getting back up, Godzilla stayed down while also holding his head in pain. "What's wrong with him?" Mikasa asked. Mickey closed her eyes and focused. Her face cringed for a moment, then her eyes opened wide. "I don't believe it," she whispered. "What?" Armin asked, but Mickey looked at Eren. "Eren," Mickey started, "Godzilla has your memories." Everyone was shocked by this news. "What, but how?" Eren asked. "That's impossible," Mikasa said. "How can it have Eren's memories?" "Wait," Armin said, "I think I know." Everyone looked at him as he explained, "Remember when Godzilla was about to eat Eren in his Titan form? Molly used her telepathy to try to stop him. But when Anguirus rammed him," Mickey, realizing what Armin was talking about, "something must have happened and Maul fainted." "So what you're trying to say is that incident caused some sort of physic attack?" Rokuro said. Eren thought for a moment. "Wait. When he dropped me, I felt a pain in my head." Eren looked at Mickey. "What memories were they?" Mickey looked conflicted, wondering if she should tell him, but he deserved to know. Mickey sighed. It was your mother's death." Eren stepped back a bit. That was what happened to those memories. That's why he wasn't so angry all the time. That memory is what fueled his hate for the Titans, and now that was in Godzilla. "Jet!" Rokuro shouted, causing everyone to look back at the battlefield. Jet Jaguar struggled against Gigan's chains. Jet Jaguar tried to break free, but the chains proved too strong for him. Gigan roared and activated his buzzsaw stomach, and the chains under his side started slowly retracting the chains back while also pulling Jet Jaguar towards him. While this was going on, many of the remaining Titans started to climb on top of Godzilla, continuing their attack. Godzilla did not react as he continued to hold his head. "We got to help Jet," shouted Rokuro. Ozaki held the boy back. "That Gigan is different from the one we fought. The Nebulans must have updated his attacks. I don't think we can do anything." "Maybe Godzilla can," said Armin. "I don't think he can," said Mikasa. "Look at him, he seems in pain." "It must be due to Godzilla having Aaron's memories," Mickey said. "Such emotional trauma like that is hard for anyone to bear." Aaron lowered his head at that. "Perhaps I can help him, but I need your help, Aaron." Mickey looked at Aaron. "Aaron, this is going to asking much from you, but you want to put that memory back in me, don't you?" Aaron said. Mickey nodded sadly, then Mikasa pulled Mickey towards her. "Do you want Aaron to suffer? That memory is best left forgotten." Armin put a hand on Mikasa. "But Mikasa, how can we get Godzilla to help if that still remains?" Mikasa then slapped his hand off of her. "You weren't there, Armin." Aaron was not the only to see that horror. "I'll do it." Mikasa and Armin looked at Aaron in surprise. Mikasa was about to say something, but Aaron shook his head, then he turned to Mickey. "What should I do?" Aaron asked. Mickey gave him a sad look. "Just hold still, clear your mind, and let me do the rest." Mickey put both hands on Aaron's temples and concentrate. "Aaron. I'm sorry." Aaron opened his eyes and saw that he was back in his hometown in the Shiganshina district. To his surprise, he saw Godzilla there, but strangely he was human size. Godzilla stood up while holding his head as he roared in pain. Then the memory begins. Aaron and Godzilla watched as rubble was falling, people running and screaming, Titans everywhere. Mickey's voice echoed in Aaron's head. "Aaron, go to Godzilla." Aaron saw Godzilla thrashing around and continued his roar and fired his beam randomly. "Aaron, he won't be able to hurt you. Just go to him, hurry." Aaron started walking slowly towards him. Then he looked up and froze. There in front of them was the smiling Titan. Godzilla roared loudly at the Titan and fired his beam at it, but it just passed through it. Aaron glared at the Titan but focused more on his attention. Aaron was about to reach Godzilla when he noticed the Titan holding the dead body of his mother. Knowing what was about to happen, Aaron avoided the scene and quickly touched Godzilla's shoulder. Then everything went black, leaving only Aaron and Godzilla. Godzilla turned around facing Aaron. Aaron and Godzilla both looked at each other. Aaron should be afraid, but somehow he wasn't. Aaron looked at Godzilla's eyes and saw a hint of gratitude on the kaiju. Aaron knew what to do now. "Please help." Godzilla opened his eyes and let loose a nuclear pulse, completely destroying the Titans surrounding him. Then Godzilla stood up and saw Gigan. Aaron moved back from everyone as he held his head. "Aaron, are you alright?" Mikasa asked. "Yes," Aaron responded. Armin looked concerned. "Do you?" "Yes, that memory is back," Aaron said sadly as he sat down on the ground. "Just give me some time." Everyone returned to the battlefield. Gigan continued to pull Jet Jaguar towards him. Gigan was about to fire his ray, but before he could get the chance, but then Godzilla fired a full-powered atomic beam at Gigan's head, completely destroying it. The chain stopped pulling and the cyborg's body collapsed. Jet Jaguar managed to free himself and looked at his rescuer. Godzilla turned away from Jet Jaguar and saw Gabara standing up with his head restored. Gabara looked up and saw Godzilla ramming himself at him. Gabara tried to punch Godzilla, but he ducked and wiped him with his tail. Gabara moved back and Godzilla fired his beam straight at Gabara's chest, pushing him back into the forest. Godzilla waited, but Gabara did not come back out. Godzilla roared in victory, then he stared walking away. He looked at Jet Jaguar. Godzilla nodded his head as a show of thanks. Jet Jaguar just walked to him and took his claw hand in a handshake. Godzilla looked at Jet Jaguar for a moment, then started on his way. "Where is he going?" Ozaki asked. "He's going to face the Nebulans." said Mickey. It worked, he is going to help. You convinced him, said Armin. Mickey smiled, I didn't, Aaron did. How unfortunate. Before anyone could react to the new voice, Aaron felt someone grabbed him from behind, but he felt too weak to fight. Everyone turned and saw Fumio holding Aaron tight with one arm around his chest and holding tight while the other arm was around Aaron's mouth. Anyone makes any move and I will snap his neck, Fumio informed. Mikasa growled, hurt Aaron and I will kill you. Ozaki raised his blaster at the human disguised Nebulan. Fumio saw this and tightened his grip, kasuing Ozaki to gently put the weapon down. Fumio moved his hand on his earpiece, begin teleportation at once. Suddenly a blue ray shined over the headless body of Gigan and then it vanished. Then another blue ray appeared, this time over Fumio and Aaron. Knowing what was about to happen, Mikasa quickly pulled out her blades and leaped at them, but as she got close both Fumio and Aaron disappeared. Mikasa's eyes widened in horror. Aaron. Chapter 19, Godzilla vs. the Flora Titan, Ino, Aaron. Mikasa fell to her knees and hit the ground with her fist. Armin ran to her in comfort, trying to calm her. What are they going to do to him? Mickey said in shock over what happened. Why would they want him? Your guess is as good as mine, Ozaki said, picking up his weapon, but I do not. Whatever they want him for, it is not going to be good. Mikasa glared at Mickey as she stood up. You. It's your fault. Mikasa, Armin tried to calm her down, but Mikasa started walking to Mickey enraged. If you hadn't made Aaron gain back that horrible memory, he would not have been taken so easily by those monsters. Mikasa bellowed. It looked like Mikasa was about to hit Mickey, but Ozaki stood in her way. Calm down, no one knew what would happen, Ozaki said. Mikasa calmed, but she still gave Mickey a glare. Mickey lowered her head at that, but her eyes widened when she thought she saw Mikasa's eyes change color. Jet Jaguar walked to the group and lowered his hand for them. Now the best thing to do now is head back to town, inform the captain, and we'll plan our next move from there, Ozaki said, motioning everyone on the robot's hand. Rokuro, Ozaki and Mikasa went up first while Mickey and Armin went up last as Armin sat next to Mickey comforting her. Jet Jaguar soon jumped and flew back towards Tanakibo, as the robot left Gabara, now back to human form, watched with great rage. Once again he was defeated by that overgrown lizard. Gabara touched his scorched chest, an aftermath of when Godzilla fired at him. Then a crunching sound came to his ears. Gabara turned to the source of the sound, which was Gara in human form taking a bite out of the decomposing carcass of a titan. Filled with more rage than ever, Gabara ran towards Gara. Just as he took another bite of titan flesh, Gabara delivered a hard punch right at Gara's face, knocking him down. You gluttonous cannibal, where were you? Gabara shouted. Gara touched the blood running from his broken nose and licked it. When that other one came down, I knew it was hopeless. Epically when it cut off your head. Gabara growled and placed his foot on Gara's face. That is it, I'm going to dash, to what? Gabara and Gara both stood still for a second, then they turned their heads up and saw the beast titan, Zeke Jaeger, looking down on them hunched. The beast titan observed them with a calm face. Gabara groaned and removed his foot from Gara. So you came to check up on us? The beast titan noted. I see Reiner and Sonda aren't with you. The cannibal's brother defected, and as for Reiner, well, who cares? He's probably dead for all I care. Gabara said, causing the beast titan to frown. So you're sending us back? Gara asked. The beast titan looked up, watching Jet Jaguar flying away. The titan shifter pulled on his beard in thought. Not yet. I want to see what will transpire first. Aaron fell to the ground, feeling disoriented from the psychic thoughts and the teleporting. Before Aaron could stand up, metal clamps covered his hands and feet, somehow preventing him to stand. So you brought over a gift. Aaron looked up and saw both Fumio and Kubota standing over him. And why not, said Fumio, after all, if what Ms. Leonhardt said and from what we were able to get from the mind scan, this boy will be perfect for any future plans. Leonhardt, Annie? Aaron said out loud, causing the two Nebulans to look down. Oh, so you're still conscious, Mr. Jaeger, said Fumio with a small smile. Well, that's good news for me, said Kubota with a sadist grin. After all, experimenting with another Titan shifter will be most interesting. Aaron's eyes widened in fear at what he said, then Fumio stood between them. Now Kubota, you have not gained approval from the queen. Fumio looked down at Aaron with a cold expression, but until then you can keep him in your lab. And who knows, you might get an extra soon. Extra? Aaron tired to show bravery despite his weakened state. What do you mean? Fumio and Kubota looked at each other, then Kubota walked towards Aaron. Don't worry about it yet. Sadly, I do not have anything on me to sedate you. So I will have to. How do you Earthmen say it? Oh yes. The old-fashioned way. Kubota then kicked Aaron so hard it knocked him unconscious. You enjoyed that too much, Fumio said as Kubota smiled at his action. The ground rumbled as the last colossal titan of Wall Sheena was lifted up in the air and strangled by the tendrils of the Flora Titan, and like she did to its fellow, she allowed her mouth tendrils to pick off the flesh as it hung by one of her vines. With the colossal eaten, the Flora Titan stood still in her place in front of the royal capital where the Nebulan ship floated. The Flora Titan managed to destroy both walls in all 4 of the districts of Wall Sheena, leaving nothing but rubble on the ground and traces of dissolving flesh from the colossal titans. Already word spread that parts of Wall Rose in the Utopia district were being destroyed by a silver lizard kaiju. Many people were conflicted on how to feel over the situation they found themselves in. On one hand, they felt sadness for the destruction of an object that they felt safe and secured, and on the other anger for those who destroyed it. But on the other hand, they knew the walls did nothing as they were nothing more than a ton of bricks and hardly kept both titans and kaijus out. The Nebulans have proven to have a strong amount of power to destroy either of those creatures. But once the Nebulans have shown their true appearance, it was as if everyone was looking at fear itself. True people were informed that the Nebulans were not really humans, but seeing them right now, no one could ever imagine something like this. Once people were brave enough to go about their daily business, instead of seeing any local law enforcements or any scout regiments. They only saw 1 or 2 Nebulans patrolling the streets, watching the people as if they want them to try and attack them, or maybe they want to see their fear. On the night the Nebulans shown their true forms and started destroying the walls, their queen told them on the screen that people are free to leave if they wish. Many people soon started packing and left through the walls that were not being attacked yet, but there have been rumors that many of the people who left were killed by a strange sickness. Before he died, one of the nomads claimed the deaths were caused by a black cloud with eyes flying overhead. Those rumors and claim alone made people stop and made them remain, not knowing whom to fear now. Historia looked out of her balcony, feeling regret for what she has allowed to happen. Emer never left her side after the broadcast. She continued to try and cheer Historia up, but Emer knew that even if she made her smile, the guilt still remains. So I haven't seen any of the guards about, Emer said. I told them to patrol the area to prevent any riots, Historia said sadly, but I was told that many of them were no longer needed. Let me guess, the bugs? Emer asked. Historia nodded in reply. You know, I'm beginning to miss them looking like dead people, Emer joked, but Historia still didn't respond. She sighed and wrapped her arms around Historia's waist and hugged her from behind. Her head rested on top of Historia's. Historia smiled softly, her left hand cupping Emer's cheek while the other hand rested on one of Emer's arms. You know, I think it's going to rain, Emer said, looking at the sky ahead. How can you tell with that thing above us? Historia joked. The couple laughed at this. Historia turned around and hugged Emer, her arms around her this time and her head rested on her chest. Thank you for being here with me, Historia said softly. I don't know what I would do without you. Emer smiled. As I said many times, I am not going any - pardon me. The couple jumped a little as they turned to see a Nebulan standing in the doorway. There's a thing called knocking, ever heard of it? Emer said, frowning at them along with Historia. The insect alien just walked until it was almost close to them. Emer and Historia moved back slightly towards the balcony. Historia, the Nebulan spoke, our Queen Natala commands you presence as well as the Titan shifters at once. Hey, maybe you forgot, but this lady is Queen Historia. Emer snapped, don't talk to her like that. Historia did not tell Emer to calm down after that, for right now she did not feel like be diplomatic. Tell your queen that I do not want to see her right now, Historia said sternly. In fact, I don't want to see any Nebulans right now. So leave. The Nebulan stood in place, its lower arms twitching. Historia glared. Did you hear what I said? I said I'm afraid, the Nebulan interrupted. You don't have a choice in the matter. Before Historia could respond, the sides of the Nebulan ship turned blue and their transport beam shined on Historia and Emer, instantly teleporting them into the ship. Historia held her head for a moment until the after effects from the teleport stopped. She noticed that not only were she and Emer in the teleporter room, but they were surrounded by Nebulans, each holding a blaster in their claws. What is the meaning of this? Historia shouted, I order you to take us back this instant. None of the Nebulans moved nor responded to her order. Emer rubbed her head from the after effect, then suddenly two Nebulans grabbed her arms. Hey, let go. Emer struggled, but the two Nebulans held their grip. Let her go. Historia tried to get to Emer, but two other Nebulans stopped her in her tracks. Calmness now. Historia turned, seeing Natala still in human guise walking to her with two unarmed Nebulans by her side. Natala, what is the meaning of this? Historia demanded. You will address her as Queen, Ape, hissed one of the Nebulans, but Queen Natala raised her hand to silence it. My messenger told you, did he not? That you needed to speak with me, Historia said. Well, I will tell you as I told your messenger, I don't want to speak to you. Queen Natala looked at Historia, then she let out a chuckle. Oh, Historia. You think you have a choice in this? Historia glanced at Emer as she still struggled, then she looked back at the Nebulan Queen. Historia glared, I am the Queen and you will dash, you are Queen of nothing. Historia flinched when the Nebulan Queen shouted. Natala's expression turned stern as she stood in front of Historia, the Nebulan Queen towering over the young human. You lost your title when you and your people chose to let us stay, Natala said, and now I rule these lands, I rule the people, and I rule you. Historia froze in her spot. She was right, she literally just gave her kingdom away to her to them. Natala then turned towards Emer. She walked to the Titan shifter, still trying to break free, save Historia, and kill every Nebulan she sees. Natala stopped in her tracks and spoke to her. Emer, I want you to cooperate with us and do as I say. Emer stopped her thrashing as she glared at her. Cooperate? Like hell. Why should I listen to you? Natala paused as she put her hand on her chin and thought, you got a point. I can't threaten to kill you, and due to your healing abilities, cutting up your limbs would be futile. So what am I going to do? Natala soon smiled. Oh, I know. Natala snapped her fingers and one of the unarmed Nebulans came over to her. The Nebulan stood between Emer and Historia. The Nebulan showed its claws and made a fist. It lifted its arm and punched Historia in the face, knocking her down. Historia! Emer shouted, trying to break free but could not. Historia raised herself a little, she touched her face and winced. Her nose was broken and bleeding. Then the same Nebulan pulled her by the hair and slammed her back down to the ground. Stop it! Emer shouted. Natala smiled at this action. Despite the pain she felt, Historia tired to get as well as pull a hidden dagger out her sheath she kept hidden around her bicep, but the Nebulan grabbed her arm and lifted her up by it. Then it put its other hand on Historia's arm and gave it a hard twist. If you could hear over Historia's screen, you would hear the sound of a crack. She wanted to kill it. No, Emer wanted to kill every Nebulan right now, staring with the one who was hurting her, Historia. But she could do nothing. She could not turn into a Titan without causing more harm. Emer watched helpless as the Nebulan dropped her, then it placed its foot on her back and started pressing down. In tears, Emer turned to Natala. Stop it, please. Natala turned to Emer. You know what I want to hear. Emer, Historia said weakly, don't, please just dash, but she screamed again as the Nebulan put more pressure on her back, threatening to break it like her arm. All right. I'll do whatever you ask. Just please stop. Natala smiled at Emer's surrender. She snapped her fingers and the Nebulan removed its foot and moved away from Historia. Natala turned to Emer. You will follow my soldiers and do what they say. Now move along. The two Nebulans let go of Emer. She was about to run to Historia, but two armed Nebulans blocked her path with weapons raised. Natala stood in front of the two Nebulans. I said move along. Or do you want another reason? Emer glared at Natala. She looked down at Historia with tears in her eyes at her love. Historia wanted to look at Emer, but she could not move due to the pain. Not wanting to see her put through more pain, Emer followed the other Nebulans out of the room, but not without giving a worried glance at her lover. Historia managed to lift her head, but instead of seeing Emer, she saw the Nebulan Queen. "Oh Historia, look at yourself. You're a mess," Natala said, shaking her head in disapproval. Historia glared at her, showing her teeth covered in blood. "Well, we can't have you looking like that," Natala said. "We have to make you look more presentable." Natala clapped her hands, causing two Nebulans to lift Historia by the arms, not caring that one of them was broken. "Dry her face and get a cast for her arm, then bring her to the command station. We don't want her to miss the show." Historia spit out some blood, then looked back at Natala. "Show? What show?" Natala smiled. "Why, the death of Godzilla." "Oh, sorry, I meant the Great Predator." "Okay, take it easy now, one step at a time," Sasha said as Anguirus slowly started raising himself up on his front legs. Anguirus started shaking a little, but the armored kaiju refused to fall down. Instead, Anguirus let out a roar, showing he is back to health. "Yes, no one can bring you down," Sasha cheered while running to hug Anguirus' toe. Anguirus turned to Gorosaurus as the Dino Kaiju walked to him. Some of the onlookers thought that the two were going to fight each other, but after Anguirus let out a roar to him, Anguirus bowed his head and Gorosaurus bowed his head as well. "Wait, what just happened?" Connie said in confusion. "Isn't it obvious?" said Laura. "Anguirus is thanking Gorosaurus for watching the town while he was injured." "Incredible," said Nick. "These creatures actually show a form of intelligence akin to how primates or mammals show." "Yes, it would seem the kaijus here are a lot different from the ones back in our universe," said Dr. Shiragami. Kazama scoffed. "Please, you actually think those overgrown lizards have intelligence? Back where we're from, all the kaijus are just what they are, monsters." "Well, have you tried to communicate with them?" Maul asked. "No, we were too busy trying to kill them before they could kill us," Kazama said. Before this debated discussion continued, everyone noticed that the two kaijus soon looked towards the forest and saw Jet Jaguar flying back, and soon the robot landed and gently laid his hand down to let his passengers off. Mikasa was the first to step off, her expression a silent rage. Jean was the first to notice this, as well as one other thing. "Hey, where's Jaeger?" Mikasa growled and kicked a rock at his question. "They took him," Armin said as he stood next to Mickey, trying to comfort her. "Who did?" asked Hang. "Was it the Nebulans?" asked Miyuki. The group silence was the answer to that. "What? But why would they do that?" said Connie. "You mentioned that they took another person who could turn into a Titan, right?" said Nick. "Maybe they want to know how it is done. And with that knowledge, turn the entire human race here into an army of Titans under their control," said Hang, putting the pieces together. "Could they do that?" said Jean. "We've all seen what they are capable of," said Ozaki. "Who knows, maybe they might try something else." Mikasa looked at all of them. "We have to attack them now." "Now there is a girl that is speaking my language," said Kazama. Armin quickly went to Mikasa to try and calm her down. "Mikasa, listen, I know you want to rescue Eren. So do I, but we don't have a plan yet." "We do know." Everyone turned to Gordon and Levi walking to the group. "So we got another reason to attack those bugs," Levi replied. Gordon looked at Mikasa, noticing her anxious to get Eren back and killing the ones who took him. "Don't worry, if they do need him for something, they keep him alive," Gordon replied. Ozaki looked to Gordon. "So what is the plan, Captain?" Everyone huddled close to the two captains. Levi looked at everyone. "All right, listen close, here is the plan." Afterwards, the Gotengo crew returned to begin preparations. Kazama stood with the other active members of the M Squad, while Ozaki returned to the command deck on the bridge along with Miyuki, Dr. Shiragami, Randy Hernandez, and the other members of the ship. Rokuro stood outside of the ship, having been ordered by Gordon to remain in Tanakibo until they come back. The boy genius wanted to go with them, but he understood. He looked at Jet Jaguar, now returned to normal size. The robot bent down, allowing the boy to hug him. "Good luck out there, Jet," Rokuro said, letting him go. "You remember the plan, right?" "BYYOIA." Jet Jaguar gave him a thumb up, making the boy smile. While this was going on, Levi and the rest of the Corps restocked their blades and fueled their gears. Levi along with Hang, Moblet, Mikasa, Armin and Jean both agreed to join the Gotengo crew in their mission, but Sasha felt it best to remain here in Tanakibo in case something went wrong. Levi agreed and let Hitch and Marlowe to stay behind. As they walked to the ship, Armin was stopped by Mickey. Armin turned to her as Mickey placed her hand on his shoulder. Armin, Mickey paused, "Be careful out there and come back safe and sound." Armin blushed a little, but he nodded and gave Mickey's hand a gentle squeeze and joined the others. As they entered the ship, Jet Jaguar took off to the sky and flew away from the ship in the direction of the walls. Once inside the ship, Levi, Mikasa, Hang, and Armin entered the bridge as Gordon activated the ship's communications, addressing the crew. "Okay, everyone listen up," Gordon spoke. "It's time to finish off those bugs once and for all. What we are about to do is finish the mission we set out to do when we left home." Gordon looked at the ship's screen, looking out in the distance. "Time to finish this operation once and for all. Now let's go kick some cockroach ass." The Gotengo's engine turned on at once, then the ship started rising up and headed off towards the walls. The townspeople watched amazed as the ship flew overhead. Anguirus and Gorosaurus watched the ship fly away, while Sasa, Hitch, Marlowe, Mickey, Sonda, Maul and Laura watched as well. "Why you think they can do it?" Sonda said. Mickey put her hands together in a silent prayer. "They are strong. I'm sure they can win." Lying on the ground, Eren started coming to. He stood up slowly as he opened his eyes. Then he widened as he saw himself standing over destroyed rubble. Not only that, he found himself bigger and not the size of his Titan form. He was big. Eren then heard a strange noise around the area. Eren looked left, then right, then he turned around and froze. Right in front of him was a giant insect. Its appearance is a lot like a dragonfly, except on the end of its tail is a stinger and its face looked almost reptile-like with armed pincers at its chest. The creature's wings started flapping slowly, then started to increase speed so that it was barely seen. The creature let out a shriek and flew fast towards Eren. Eren opened his eyes and stood up fast, but once he did, he felt a sharp pain on his face. Eren recalled how Kubota kicked him. But that creature he saw, was it a dream? He felt like he's seen it before, but where? But any more thoughts on that were changed when Eren noticed his new location. He was in a large room with metal reflecting floors, and sitting right across from him are Fumio and Kubota on metal chairs drinking tea. "Say what you will about humanity," said Fumio, "but they do make interesting drinks." "I suppose." Kubota took a sip from the cup, then noticed Eren looking at them. "Awake again, I see. Recovered from my kick yet?" Eren snarled at them and was about to bite his hand to activate the transformation, but Fumio raised a finger and wagged it. I would not do that if I were you," Fumio said as he stood up from his chair and walked only 5 feet towards Eren. Then he flicked his finger in the air, but as the Nebulan did that, it showed Eren was trapped inside an invisible barrier. Eren watched as the vibrations caused from the flick vibrate around the barrier. It's harmless to touch on the outside of the barrier, but if you were to touch on the inside, well, it would deliver quite a shock, Fumio finished. "An invention of my own design," Kubota said with pride as he took another sip. Before Eren could speak, a door slid open as 2 fully reveled Nebulans brought Ymir into the room. "Ymir?" Eren said, looking at his fellow Titan shifter. "Eren?" Ymir said in surprise. Then one of the Nebulans touched the barrier, making it visible and making an entrance on it, surprising Ymir in the process and not noticing the other Nebulan pushing her in. As Ymir gained her footing, the other Nebulan touched the barrier again, closing the entrance, trapping Ymir with Eren inside. As the 2 Nebulans left the room, a second door opens where Fumio and Kubota are. They both bowed as Queen Natala came out. "You bitch!" Ymir shouted as she started running towards her. Eren shouted at her to stop, but Ymir did not listen, for she was too filled with rage over what this monster had allowed to happen to Istwara. Ymir was close enough, but as she was about to bite her hand, she suddenly hit an invisible wall and was pushed back by an electric shock. Ymir gasped as she held her chest in pain and started twitching from the electricity. Fumio smiled. "There now, Eren, aren't you glad that you did not touch it?" Natala smiled at Ymir. Are we still upset about what happened to your queenie girlfriend?" Ymir glared hatefully at Natala, but due to the shock she could not get right now. "Wait," Eren said, "what have you done to Historia?" Natala noticed Aaron and looked at him. "Oh, my men just gave her a little bruising, that's all. She will be fine." "Now let us talk about you." Aaron frowned. "There is nothing I want to say to you." That attitude seems to be going around lately," Natala said as she observed Aaron. "No doubt you have already met the crew of bothersome humans from our world, am I right?" "Wait, what?" Emer spoke in confusion. "Please be silent, it would take too long to explain to the likes of you," said Natala, returning her attention to Aaron. "Well..." Aaron kept his sight on the Nebulan Queen and felt rage over this monster wearing the skin of his mother right in front of him. "They told me us all about your people and what you have done," Aaron said. Natala chuckled. "Yes, of course my husband was in charge of that little mistake, but when he was killed in battle I devoted myself to our mission. After all, the failure of one world doesn't matter compared to the conquest of other worlds." "So all that talk about peace was nothing but a lie then?" Emer said, finally standing up. "Oh no, we do want peace," Natala said honestly, "but peace in our way and you all would have lived as your slaves," Aaron said. Natala smiled. "Well, I would not say slave, more like obedient servants." "Oh wait, that's somewhat a nicer term for slave," Natala shrugged. "Oh well, I guess you could put it that way." "But they welcome it," said Fumio. "For proper protection," said Kubota. "After all, perfect peace must come with a price." Aaron glared at all three of them. These monsters have perverted the word peace as slavery in their terms. If only he and Emer could escape from this prison, they would make them all pay for this. Aaron's hateful gaze then returned solely on Natala. "Since we all know what you really look like, why don't you just show us your true face?" Natal caressed her cheek lovingly. "I don't know, I'm actually rather fond of this face." "Not bad for a corpse, don't you think?" Aaron clenched his fist tight, nearly drawing blood. Natala let out a small laugh as she turned away from them. "Well, I have to be off now, I don't want to miss the show," said Natala. The Nebulan Queen turned to Fumio and Kubota. "I hope you'll have the other one ready soon." Kubota bowed. "I won't be long, I just need to get him some motivation." Natala smiled and left, but after waving goodbye at Aaron as she left. Aaron glared at the departing queen, but both he and Emer were both concerned over what she was talking about. "You're probably wondering what we were talking about," Kubota said. "Well, I'll show you." Kubota clapped his hands and more lights enveloped the dark room. Both Titan shifters looked at where the new lights shined on. The lights were shining on a more visible and in it Reiner lying on a metal bed. "Reiner?" Emer said, surprised. "Oh, don't worry about him right now," Fumio said, holding a flat handheld device. "Just enjoy the show." Fumio pushed a button and a large screen appeared above them. Aaron was shocked at what he saw. The walls of Sheena and Rose were almost gone, half of them were nearly rubble. Then the image changed to Wall Maria, which still remained intact. "What are we supposed to be seeing?" Emer said, not understanding. Kubota turned to her. "Just be patient, you will dash escari when nnggggkk. HM. Never mind, he is here." Aaron and Emer both stood still as Godzilla started approaching the walls. "He's here," Aaron whispered. "He actually came." Now would be a good time to play the Godzilla theme. Your choice on which version. Godzilla marched along the landscape, heading towards his destination and the enemy that he was told to face. Godzilla paused as he looked at the wall before him. He recalled during those strange memories that this wall brought great sorrow to him, reasons unknown. Godzilla growled at this sight, then he charged and released his atomic beam upon the wall, completely destroying that part of the wall and incinerating the Titan within. Godzilla continued on his way, his eyes set on the Nebulan ship in the distance. The enemy he was told to end. Natala entered the control room and sat down on her throne. The image of Godzilla continuing on his destination continued. "My queen, Godzilla is reaching Wall Rosa," spoke one of the Nebulans. "Shall we send one our kaijus to engage?" "Wait till he is near us by Wall Sheena, then I will give the order," the Nebulan Queen commanded. "I assume that all the humans in the areas have been safely contained? We don't want to lose our workforce." The Nebulans nodded, then the door opened and Natala saw Historia with an arm brace and bandages wrapped across the left side of her face, covering one eye while the other glared hatefully at her. "Don't clean up nicely, Historia," Natala smiled. "I hope you're not still mad, are you?" Historia did not answer as she stood in the doorway till one of the Nebulans shoved her in. That Nebulan motioned her to stand next to the Queen's throne. Reluctantly, Historia walked until she stood next to Natala but refusing to look at her. Nothing to say now? Natala mocked, good. Apes should be seen and not heard. Histoire glared at her, then she noticed Godzilla passing on what remains of Wall Rosa and headed straight to Wall Sheena. Godzilla is now headed this way, my queen, said a Nebulon. Who do you wish to send? Natala rubbed her hands together, I think I know the perfect one. Godzilla looked up at the ship, perhaps he could shoot it down from here, but before Godzilla could do anything else the sides of the ship glowed blue. Godzilla stood his ground waiting for the upcoming attack. Then a blue beam fired from its side and shot in front of Godzilla. Godzilla stood back as the blue ray shined, then it was gone and there standing is the Flora Titan. What the hell is that? Said Aaron, observing this new Titan. Ymir frowned sadly, that's Annie. Aaron was shocked at this as he looked at the image again. He was about to ask how this was possible, but seeing Ymir glare at Fumio and Kubota, he knew who was to blame. It was an interesting experiment, said Kubota, one that I am much proud of. Which reminds me. Fumio, Kubota looked at his comrade, I think it is about time to wake our other guest. Fumio nodded and headed straight to the barrier containing Rainer while Aaron looked back at the image of the Flora Titan. This is just like what happened to Bertolt, he whispered. Godzilla gazed at the Flora Titan. This creature before him reminded Godzilla of the Crystal Titan, but there was also something else about it. The Flora Titan looked at Godzilla, her tendrils flapping around behind her back while her body stood motionless. Both of their eyes met the others. Neither one moved, they just looked at each other until finally Godzilla took a single step. Scree-ongenk! Godzilla bellowed out a roar at the Flora Titan. The Flora Titan responded with a soft cry and then 4 tendrils let loose upon Godzilla. The Monster King roared in surprise at this attack as a tendril started wrapping around his waist and the other 2 wrapped around his neck while the last one pierced the palm of his left hand. Godzilla cried in pain, but then another tendril stabbed his right shoulder. Historia gasped at the sight of this action. Natala turned to look at her. Well, what did you think she was going to give him? A hug and a kiss? Kubota chuckled as the Flora Titan obeyed his commands. Excellent, now continue with the attack, don't let up. Aaron and Ymir watched helplessly as Godzilla was continued being attacked by the seemingly endless tendrils. As this was going on, Fumio entered the barrier containing Rainer and looked down upon the sleeping Titan shifter. Fumio pulled out a small capsule from his pants pocket and held it in front of Rainer's face. It's time to wake up, Mr. Braun. Fumio squeezed the capsule, releasing a purple smoke that entered Rainer's nostrils and causing him to wake up. Rainer slowly sat up from the bed as he held his head. What happened? Rainer looked around a little. Where am I? Scree-ongenk! Rainer instantly recognized the sound. He quickly lifted his head towards the sound, moved back as he saw the image of Godzilla struggling against the tendril vines by the Flora Titan. What is this? Rainer shouted. Relax, my friend. Rainer turned around fast, finally seeing Fumio. Rainer quickly sat up from the bed and showed a fighting stance, but Fumio waved his hands. Now calm down, you are among friends, Fumio said. You're those creatures from that thing in the sky, Rainer said, those Nebulons. You are most well informed on this. My name is Fumio. Fumio said. Rainer looked around the room, seeing nothing but him, Fumio and the screen, along with another one dressed like Fumio watching the screen. Rainer looked at it again, but mainly on the Flora Titan. What is that thing? Rainer said at Fumio. Rainer saw Fumio's expression, saddened at the question. I'm afraid that the creature you see is or was your friend. Ms. Annie Leonhardt. Rainer stood silent in shock. He looked at the image again, and yes, this new Titan did share similarities to the female Titan. But how is this possible? What happened to her? Rainer said, his eyes never off of the image. It is sad, but the people of the walls who we thought we could help misused our gifts and turned her into this monster. Fumio lied. Ymir saw Rainer awake. She shouted out his name, but somehow he did not hear nor see her. Don't bother, said Kubota, looking back at them. That barrier will keep him from responding to you. So just sit back and watch the fight. After all, you could say this will be your future. Aaron was about to ask what he meant, but then saw an orange glow appear on Godzilla's back. Godzilla glared at his opponent as he charged up his beam. The heat from his dorsal plate stated, burning the tendrils wrapped around him off of him. Then Godzilla fired his beam right at the Flora Titan's chest, knocking her back as the Titan screeched in pain. Godzilla grabbed the tendril out of his hand and off his shoulder, and as he did, the wound started to heal. The Flora Titan stood up from the attack as its chest started healing as well. The Flora Titan then let loose more tendrils at the Monster King, but Godzilla reacted to that and fired another beam and completely incinerating them. But the Flora Titan was prepared, and from her back she let loose her mouth tendrils at Godzilla. One of them let out an acid sap onto Godzilla's face, blinding him. Then the other mouth tendrils started biting onto Godzilla's arms, also let out acid sap upon him. Godzilla once more roared in pain and frustration at this and was not aware that the Flora Titan started walking towards him. Then as soon as Godzilla regained his sight, he saw the Flora Titan right in front of him, but before he could react, the Flora Titan reeled back. Her hand started to harden into a diamond-like structure and hit Godzilla across the face, knocking him down as more tendrils started attacking him. Reiner, filled with anger, turned to Fumio and grabbed him by the front of his shirt. "What have you done to her?" Calmly, Fumio replied, "As I have said, it was not us who did this to her. It was instead the people of this island." "You mean the ones you helped?" Reiner said. "I admit me and my people thought these people were worth protecting," Fumio said sadly, "but they abused the gifts we gave them and have turned your comrade into the monster you see before you and who they are controlling even as we speak." Reiner put Fumio down and looked back at the scene. Despite what had happened to Annie, Reiner cannot ignore that she was doing a much better job against Godzilla. She was going as far as to bloody him. Reiner continued to watch as the Flora Titan started punching Godzilla with her diamond skin hands and using the tendrils to bind and spit acid sap on him. Godzilla roared in anger, and then he let out a nuclear pulse, breaking the tendrils from him and pushing the Flora Titan away from him. Godzilla quickly stood up and started attacking the Flora Titan as he scratched her with his claws on her face and body, but the Flora Titan retaliated as she dropped down and wrapped her arms around his waist and bit down hard at his leg. Godzilla roared in pain as the needle-like teeth pierced his skin. Quickly, Godzilla let out an atomic beam at her back, scorching her as well as making her let go just as Godzilla delivered a kick at her face. The Flora Titan wailed out in pain, but she stood her ground as Godzilla charged at her again. The Flora Titan prepared for him to ram her, but instead Godzilla turned around fast and used his tail to wrap around her neck and bringing her down. The Flora Titan clawed at the tail around her neck, and then she lifted up in the air by the tail as it started to let go of her. What happened was Godzilla lifted his tail and swung her towards the wall. As the Flora Titan hit the wall and the rubble started piling on top of her, Godzilla let out one more atomic beam at her, causing an explosion. Historia covered her mouth in shock at the outcome, then felt someone tapping her shoulder. She turned to see Natala smiling. Now keep watching. Why did you send her out knowing she would not win?" Historia shouted, but the Nebulan Queen just kept smiling in knowing. "Simple for research," Natala responded, "but what makes you think she is dead now?" "Look." Historia looked back at the screen and started noticing something moving. Godzilla roared in victory and was about to move on, but he paused. He looked at the rubble. It started to move, then suddenly mouth tendrils erupted from the ground, showing the Flora Titan still alive but on her hands and knees. The Flora Titan's body was burned badly, but she was still alive. The Flora Titan looked up at Godzilla. She opened her mouth to let out a cry, then she started twitching slightly as green electricity started surrounding her body. For when she bit down on Godzilla, she ripped a piece of his flesh off of him and swallowed it. That, combining with the G cells that were already in her, means only one thing. The Flora Titan was about to change again. Play UCBIGGRL/T, tendrils starting erupting from her legs and arms as the limbs themselves are expanding as well as her back. The Flora Titan opened her mouth again, but instead of a soft wail there came out a loud bellowed roar as the electricity around her body started to shine bright and a huge gust of wind filled the area as the light blinded Godzilla for a bit, causing him to move back. It wasn't long for Godzilla to regain his sight. He looked at where the Flora Titan was, only seeing a large dust cloud. Then one by one mouth tendrils came out as they thrashed around the battlefield along with other tendrils. Then the dust cloud started to clear as a large images was shown. MIT Trauer und Entscheidung im Herzen, with sorrow and confidence in our hearts, Zegen wir den Willen weitersuchen, we show the will to move on. A large monstrous head came out of the cloud, its head like a crocodile with multitude of knife-like teeth and 6 large tusks, 3 on each side. The creature let out a large roar. Niemand darf eigenschning seines Lebens beraubt worden, no one shall willfully be deprived of their life. Godzilla moved back in surprise at the sight of this abomination. Soon the clouds vanished completely, showing off the whole body. The creature's form was large, standing up to 80 meters in height. Where its limbs should be instead 4 large root/tendrils-like limbs, on its chest the glowing meat flesh resides, and on the sides of its long neck there are traces of blonde hair. The vines attached to the legs started moving about as the mouth tendrils started roaring out. The creature's head looked at Godzilla with its yellow featureless eyes glaring at him as it let out another bellowed roar. Godzilla roared back at the creature as he stood his ground. Historia held herself in fear at the sight of Annie's new form while Natala observed, looking pleased. Well, this is an interesting surprise. I guess we have to change her name again. Natala thought for a moment, then smiled. I have it, Biollante. Reiner collapsed at this horrible sight. Once more another friend has been turned into a monster because of this creature. That poor girl, Fumio said to Reiner, hasn't she suffered enough? Eren and Ymir looked horrified at Annie no Biollante while Kubota marveled at the sight. Wonderful, what a magnificent transformation, Kubota said. Ymir snarled at him, you turned her into a monster. Kubota snickered at them, sounds like someone is envious of their friend's new form. Well, don't worry. Kubota looked at Theme with a wicked look, you will join her soon enough. Mit trauer Entscheidung im Herzen, with sorrow and confidence in our hearts, Zeigen wir den Willen weitersuchen, we show the will to move on. Godzilla roared again at Biollante while the she herself bellowed back and started moving her large limbs towards him, crushing more smaller houses and structures in her path. Niemand darf eigenschning seines Lebens beraubt worden, no one shall willfully be deprived of their life. Natala watched as another battle was beginning to unfold. My queen! Natala looked at one of the nebulans near one of the terminals. A ship is approaching us. Show it on screen. Natala ordered, and as such the image changed to that of the Gotengo headed straight to their location. Natala frowned, then relaxed. Let them come, it's about time we get rid of these pests anyway. Once and for all. Chapter 20, Outnumbered, the ground shook as the bellows of Biollante echoed across the battlefield. The behemoth who once was Annie, now hardly identified as her, moved her large root-like appendages towards the foe in front of her. Godzilla. Thinking quickly, Godzilla charged up his atomic beam and fired at the oncoming kaiju, but as the beam neared its target it was blocked by tendrils, thus destroying them but prevented hits to the main body. Godzilla was about to charge up another one when a single tendril slashed his face. Godzilla roared in pain as he covered his eyes only for Biollante to swing her giant head, knocking him down. Godzilla tried to get up, but as he did, Biollante sent her tendrils underground and then rose from the ground around Godzilla and started wrapping around him, keeping him down. Godzilla roared in anger at this action. Suddenly green flows of energy started to zap around her massive jaw. Biollante opened her mouth wide and let out acid sap upon Godzilla. The acid sap started to burn Godzilla's skin, but the tendrils were unaffected by the sap. Biollante continued to do this, but then she felt a shadow loom over her. Byyya. As soon as Biollante looked up, her head was slammed down by Jet Jaguar's feet, and after that the mechanical wonder jumped off of her head and did a hard karate chop, breaking the tendril vines and freed Godzilla. Godzilla's healing ability kicked in as soon as Jet Jaguar freed him. Godzilla looked at the large metal man and Jet Jaguar responded with a thumbs up. Godzilla did not know why, but he knew this machine was an ally. Both Godzilla and Jet Jaguar returned their sights to Biollante as she raised her head back up and glared at the two and let out a massive roar. Jet Jaguar jumped in front of Godzilla just as Biollante sent out more tendrils. Moving quickly, Jet Jaguar started chopping every tendril that came too close to them. My queen, the Gotengo is heading towards us, shouted one of the nebulans. Queen Natala gazed away from the fight and back on the image of the ship closing in on them. I grow tired of those annoying apes, she said, annoyed. Fire the beam, full power. Soon the sides of the ship started glowing red, a sign that the beam was about to fire. But before it had a chance, the Gotengo fired a blue bolt from underneath the ship. Once the bolt hit their opponent's sides, which started flicking to different colors and making the ship shake. Some of the monitors in the control room exploded, sending a few nebulans in the air and crashing down. Histoire landed on her knees and covered her face from the sparks. Stop charging! Natala growled, Then she looked back at the image of the Gotengo. So you improved on your little ship, huh? Well, let's fix that. Natala then turned to the pilot on her left. Can we use any of the ship's weapons? No, my queen. Whatever the humans fired on us disrupted our weapon systems, it spoke. Natala frowned. Then use our other weapons then. You mean the monsters? Natala snarled. What else would I be talking about? The Nebulan started trembling. Which one? The Hedorah, the cyborg, or perhaps Gigan? We've already attached a new dash. Suddenly Natala grabbed the operator's neck and forced it to look at her. All three of them, she hissed as she tossed her captive on the floor. The queen's rage remained as she noticed a smirk on Histora's face. Natala then slapped Histora to the floor as she sat back on her throne. Don't think you've won yet, ape. This is far from over. Historia got up and glared at the alien queen. Then the image changed back to the fight below. Natala stood up and shouted. Release my beasts. Underneath the ship a hole opened up and jumping down out of it came Cyberzilla. The cyborg monster turned to see Biollante facing against Godzilla and Jet Jaguar. With a roar of his own he started making his way to the fight. At the same time, on top of the alien ship, two more doors opened up. The first to come out was Hedorah in his flying form heading right towards the Gotengo. From the other hole came out Gigan alive, except he gained a new head. It had a neck brace, along with a longer horn on his head and mandibles. Also his side blades were replaced with chainsaws. Gigan was ordered to aid Hedorah and attack the Gotengo, but once he noticed Godzilla and Jet Jaguar below, rage and a thirst for vengeance took full control and he charged down to attack. Jet Jaguar managed to spot the smog monster heading towards the Gotengo. He was about to fly up to stop it but then leaped over Biollante. Cyberzilla landed on Jet Jaguar, knocking the robot down. Godzilla noticed his fallen ally and was about to defend him, only for Gigan to land between them. Gigan raised his saw arms as they started moving along with the saw blade on his chest while Gigan let out a metallic scream. Godzilla was about to roar in response, only for him to let out a painful shriek as he was sprayed in the back by Biollante's acid sap, which caused Godzilla to stumble forward, and then Gigan slashed across Godzilla's chest, making the king of the monsters spill blood. Jet Jaguar tried to push Cyberzilla off of him, but the cyborg monster grabbed his shoulders and tried to bite Jet's head, but was halted by Jet Jaguar's hands. On board the Gotengo, Captain Gordon watched as Hedorah came close to them. "Alright everyone," said Gordon, "let's show this ugly iCloud our new toys." As Hedorah neared the ship, the Gotengo's drill started spinning as electric energy started dancing around the drill, and then a bolt fired from the tip. When it hit the smog monster, Hedorah shrieked in pain as it fell down right on top of Biollante. The behemoth screamed in pain as Hedorah's toxic skin made contact with hers. Jet Jaguar raised his head and his eyes started shining bright lights that caused Cyberzilla to flinch and letting Jet Jaguar kick him away. As soon as Jet Jaguar stood up, he grabbed Cyberzilla's tail and using his great strength he swung the cyborg monster right into Gigan, knocking them both down. Godzilla held his chest as he started to heal, then he moved away from Gigan and stood next to Jet Jaguar. Gigan and Cyberzilla stood back up and roared at their foes. Biollante bellowed at Godzilla, then by her side Hedorah started glowing and his shape started to change. Soon Hedorah was standing up as he just entered his final form. Both Godzilla and Jet Jaguar looked upon their four enemies, each of them waiting for one of them to attack. Natala gripped her throne in anger at this turn of events. "Do any of our short-range weapons work at all?" she growled. One of the operators on the terminals nodded. "Yes, my queen, but they don't have enough firepower to dash." "I don't care. Fire at that ship now!" the Nebulan queen bellowed. Then the sides of the ship started losing its color, making it black, and multiple holes opened up. "All right everyone," Gordon said, "this is it, we've pissed her off. Get ready. Play the Gotengo theme from Godzilla Final Wars." Missiles fired from the spaceship towards the Gotengo. The Gotengo retaliated by firing from its drill and its own missiles from its side. Both ships were equal in firepower as almost neither side could hit the other. Then the Gotengo turned to its left and fired 3 new missiles, each equipped with drills on the front. 2 of them headed topside while the third headed near the middle of the ship. The drills on the first two disengaged from the missiles, letting loose small rockets that fired rapid flares, causing the viewscreen inside the alien ship to fizzle. The other missile remained on its course. As it neared, the missile started to slow its speed. The drill started moving and punctured the side of the Nebulan ship, entering into a section of the ship. "Did it get in?" said Gordon, pressing his hand to an earpiece. 6 armed guards came as soon as the missile entered, and when they got close, the drill fell off, and as it did, a barrage of bullets came out, hitting all 6 of the Nebulans. Then out of the missile came Ozaki, Kazama, Mikasa, Armin, and Jean. Ozaki reached his earpiece. "Yeah, we're in." Reiner watched the carnage, but mostly on the creature that used to be another comrade. He watched as Biollante tried to use her massive jaws to bit down onto Godzilla's head, but the king of the monster reacted fast and whipped his tail and struck her jaw, knocking her head to the side. What have they done to her?" Reiner said as he tightened his fist. Fumio looked at Reiner with a sad expression. "Allow me to explain the full detail. After seeing the effects of what happened to your other friend, Berthold was it?" Reiner nodded as Fumio continued. "Well, after seeing how powerful he was after the transformation, the people here put that poor girl through the most inhumane torture possible." Reiner started to let out some tears as he heard Biollante roar in pain as Jet Jaguar slammed a hand in her left eye just as Hedora fired an I-beam at the robot, making him move away from her and having Jet face off against the smog monster. "And when we came here, it only got worse." Fumio started to cover his face with his hand as he let out a fake cry. "We only came to help, and yet we were tricked into doing their wicked deeds, and by the time we found out the truth, well, as you can see, it is too late." "You lying bug. Don't listen to him, Reiner. You can't be that stupid to believe him," shouted Emer, trying to alert him as Kubota rolled his eyes. "Did you not hear what I said about the barrier?" said Kubota. "Do I have to speak dumb to you apes? Well, this ape is going to rip you apart limb by limb and bit your ugly ass head off," said Emer with a glare, only for Kubota to chuckle at the threat. "Oh well, it is a good thing that you are just where your kind should belong in." Kubota tapped the barrier that Emer and Eren are still trapped in. Emer snarled at the Nebulan while Eren kept his focus on the fight. He saw Hedora sending black globs from its body and hitting Godzilla's side. Godzilla roared in pain as the toxic ooze started burning his flesh. Then Gigan came sliding with his chainsaws, dragging him on the ground as he charged at Godzilla. Godzilla was about to fire when Gigan fired his Giganum cluster beam at the king of the monsters, hurting him and causing a distraction as Gigan flew up and slashed his chest up. Godzilla growled with frustration over the pain. Then Cyberzilla started charging behind him, but as the cyborg lizard started to pounce, Godzilla spun around and hit the cyborg with his tail, sending Cyberzilla towards Gigan, knocking both cyborgs to the ground. Godzilla roared to the sky and headed towards the next foe. Eren then looked at Kubota. "What do you want with us?" Kubota looked at Eren with amusement. "Oh, haven't you figured it out yet?" "Oh, what am I saying? Of course you don't." "Well, Mr. Jaeger, is for dear Emer there, we could always use another mindless slave, but you are a very interesting subject, you. And the coordinator you carry within." Both Eren and Emer widened their eyes at this while Kubota chuckled once more. "I bet your primitive minds are wondering, how could I know about the coordinate?" "Well, aside from what information we acquired from Ms. Leonhardt, we also got forms scanning your minds." Kubota leaned against the barrier. "You did not think that we only scanned your mind for bodies we could disguise ourselves with, did you?" "No, we also scanned for anything we deemed is worth our attention." Kubota looked at Eren with fascination. "You possess the power to control man and titans if given the proper control." Kubota started to laugh a little. "It almost amuses me how you acquired it in the first place." Kubota raised a single finger. "First your father devoured the sister of your queen, then he raised a second finger, then you gained it after you devoured your own father." Kubota gave a small chuckle. "I must say, if I did not see it for myself, I would find that hard to swallow." Kubota let out another laugh as he moved away from the barrier just as Eren, filled with rage, charged at the mocking alien, but when he got close the barrier set a jolt to Eren, sending him to the ground as he held his chest in pain while Emer checked on him. "Oh, forgot about the barrier again, did we?" Kubota said. Apes, so stupid no matter how they evolve." Kubota turned to look at the monitor as the fight continued. Jet Jaguar gave Biollante an uppercut under her jaw and double-kicked Hedora, not caring as the robot's feet burned. Cyberzilla was about to charge until he came under fire from the Gotengo's missiles as the ship fired on both the Nebulan's kaijus and the ship itself. Kubota frowned. 3 against 4 should be an obvious advantage for us. Then a thought came to him and smiled, so I guess we should add an addition. Kubota looked at his comrade, Fumio nodded, getting the same idea he had. Fumio looked down at Reiner as the Titan Shifter's eyes never left the screen. Fumio lowered himself a bit as he at Reiner's side. Reiner. Reiner looked at Fumio like he just suddenly appeared. You know she won't last, don't you? What? Reiner asked in confusion. Fumio pointed to Biollante as she roared at Godzilla. When Bertolt came back as the Crystal Titan and then changed again, I bet both you and he thought that he could kill the great predator Godzilla, and yet he died by its hands. Again. Reiner knew he was right, and may look strong besides the monstrous form, but he knew the great predator is almost damn near impossible to kill. Reiner grabbed a hold of Fumio's shirt in desperation. You got to help her. Reiner pleaded, you have to dash. I'm sorry, but there is nothing I can do for her, Fumio answered as he took Reiner's hands off of him. Reiner looked like a man without hope at this response. But there is something you might do if you so choose. Reiner looked at Fumio. What? What is it I have to do? I'll do anything, just tell me. Fumio looked at Reiner, then at the screen, then back at Reiner. I've heard it said, if one wants to fight monsters, one must become a monster themselves. You and your comrades became titans to fight the devils here, but now the game has changed, Fumio said. Reiner stood up, knowing full well what he was asking of him. You want me to turn into a dash unlike your friends? Of course, Fumio interrupted, they had no choice when they became kaijus. You on the other hand will have the choice to become one, and unlike them you will have a better chance at standing up against Godzilla. Reiner felt conflicted at this choice. On one hand he would have the power to be able to handle this new threat, but on the other hand he might lose himself just like Bertolt. Then he felt Fumio's hand on his shoulder. Just think of what that monster and those like him will do once they leave the island. You know and seen firsthand of the destruction they will cause. Just answer this to yourself. What would a warrior do? At the mention of that word Reiner's face tightened with determination. Reiner looked at Fumio and asked, what do you want me to do? The pain Eren felt soon finally started to ease as he stood up, but once he did he noticed the barrier over Reiner disappear and Fumio stepping far away from him. Reiner lifted his hand and bit down hard, activating the transformation into the armored titan. Kubota soon stood next to Fumio as a floating cube rose from the ground and flew to them. Now Reiner, shouted Fumio as he typed on the side of the cube, this is just for precaution. As he finished typing, 2 large claw hands came down from the ceiling and each one grabbed a hold of the armored titan's arm. The titan shifter moved a bit but stood still. Kubota leaned his head to Fumio's ear. By the way, Kubota asked, what are you giving him? Fumio smiled, why tell when I can show you. Fumio grabbed the cube and tuned it to the other side with a display screen on it and showed the information on it to Kubota. As he looked at it, Kubota's eyes widened in shock, but he kept a calm tone. Are you sure this is wise? You and I both know that it has become unpredictable in the past, Fumio answered, and without its conciseness it is useless to us now, so why not make use of its DNA? Kubota thought for a second. What about the queen? What would she say about this? Fumio typed on the cube and a tendril came down, except it seems clear, almost see-through, and it had a needle with a hole in its tip as it lowered to the armored titan's back. I'm sure she would not mind once she see my latest project in work, Fumio said. Now Reiner. The armored titan looked down at Fumio. You might feel a slight discomfort. Fumio pressed on the cube and the tendril stabbed the armored titan, the needle managing to pierce his armored hide. Eren and Ymir both watched in shock as a red liquid started coming down into the tendril tube and down to where the needle is, and without any doubt being added into Reiner's body. Soon the armored titan felt pain within his body, like he was being electrocuted from within. He roared in agony as he tried thrashing about, but the clawed arms managed to hold him in place. By the way, what do you call this new project of yours? Kubota asked, observing. As the armored titan roared in pain, he started to grow and his skin started to change color. The armored turned from pale to white, the red part of his skin started turning black, and his armor started becoming jagged and some parts became spikes. Then he started sprouting out a long black forked tail. Reiner felt no pain like this in his lifetime, but he had to go through with this. There was no other way. He has to win by any means necessary. My enemy. An image of Godzilla letting out an atomic beam upon the downed colossal titan. My enemy. An image of Godzilla tossing Crystalac in the air and obliterating him with a powerful beam. I must kill. The armored titan looked up at the image of Godzilla. Screeo Nunnink. My enemy. The armored titan made one last roar, then he froze in place, his eyes fading. Then to Aaron and Emer's shock, the armored titan's lower jaw fell to the ground and disintegrated. They both looked up at the frozen mutated form of the armored titan and noticed a crack coming down between the titan's face. Then the face split opened as a new head came out. This new head had a large bone-like crest on the back of his head, two spike-like horns, one facing in front of the other. The face of this creature looks like a cross between a skeleton creature and a demon, and his eyes glowed red, filled with hate. Fumio smiled. I think the project should be called Project X. Aaron and Emer once more looked in horror, as another old comrade turned enemy has become a monster. No more Reiner, no more armored titan, now there is only Monster X. Soon the tendril and the claw arms let go and moved away from the creature as Fumio looked upon this new being. So, are you ready to have your revenger? Fumio asked. Monster X answered by letting out a cruel, horrifying bellow. Fumio smiled, then show Godzilla what you are made of. Fumio pushed a button on the cube, causing a hole to appear, and Monster X jumped down into it. Once he was gone, Fumio and Kubota turned to Aaron and Emer. So, Kubota said, looking at them like a child ready to play a horrible game. Who's next? Godzilla and Jet Jaguar stood by each other once more as their foes stood in front of the Nebulan ship. Biollante in the back, while Gigan stood in front of her and Hedorah and his left and Cyberzilla at his right. They were about to attack when the bottom of the ship opened up. All combatants looked up as a new figure slowly descended upon them. Godzilla growled, feeling something familiar about this new foe. Monster X came down in front of Gigan, then lifted his head and looked only upon Godzilla. Monster X growled and let out a roar at Godzilla. Jet Jaguar started walking towards Monster X, but Godzilla shoved him aside as if to say, "This one is mine." Godzilla roared back at Monster X, and soon enough the two charged at one another, each of them ready to fight. While a new battle is beginning within the walls, outside something has come. Soon it is shown to be Anguirus, and on his snout holding on to his horn, Sasha, Connie, Maul, and Sonda. Are you sure this is a good idea? Sonda asked. Of course it is, Sasha said, holding on tight to the horn. And besides, we brought reinforcements. As Anguirus let out a roar, he was joined by multitudes of different roars from a group of different kaijus behind him. This battle was about to get bigger. Chapter 21, All Out Strike Part 1, Tanakibo, a few hours earlier. Why you think they CACA can do it? Sonda said as he and the others watched the Gotengo leave Tanakibo. Mickey put her hands together in a silent prayer. They're strong. I'm sure they can win. Still, I wish we could do something, Marlo said, feeling useless. Please, you heard Captain Levi's plan, Hitch said, they can handle it. Maybe. Marlo sighed, you not exactly helping here. He might be right, Sonda started, those BB bugs might have something new to use. Laura started to look troubled, the Nebulans have been known to surprise us. After all, they did use those two strange monsters to attack us. What if they have more of those? Maul put her hand on her sister's shoulder, don't worry, the great predator or Godzilla will face those threats. Yeah, but can he handle them? Hitch said. What makes you say that? Mickey asked, finishing her prayer. No disrespect or anything, Hitch said. There's a first. Hitch groaned at Marlo, then continued. What I mean was that as great as Godzilla or whatever they call him may not handle two or how many other kaijus those bug got on their hands. TT true, Sonda started, maybe they do need help. You're not offering to go, are you? Maul asked. Sonda, you didn't see what the Nebulans creatures did, Laura started, you won't stand a chance. Sonda looked down for a moment, then gave a bold face, but was slightly trembling. I was always a CC coward. FF following orders, KN knowing full WL how horrible they were. Now I want to fight. 4. What's? Are alright for once. I still want to make AA dash. Then Mickey placed her hand on Sanda's temples. Sanda looked at Mickey and she smiled. You already have done what's right. She took her hand off him and looked at everyone. I know we all want to help them. But what we have now is enough to protect our town. Mickey frowned, but we don't have the means or the numbers to help and dash, guys. Everyone turned to Connie running towards them and stopped as he took a couple of breaths and pointed to the bay. Does Anguirus do this often? Does what often? Sasha asked, looking at the bay and to her shock as well as those watching. They saw Anguirus holding in his jaw 10 nets filled with fish. That is a lot of fish, said Hitch. Those were the recent catches. Laura shouted. What is he doing with them? It looks like he is giving them to Gorosaurus, Connie said. Just as Connie said, Anguirus started walking to Gorosaurus and dropped 5 nets filled with fish down to his feet, and Gorosaurus picked them up with his jaw. The group managed to reach this exchange at the end of the town. Maybe Anguirus is rewarding him? Marlowe guessed. Anguirus then turned to the group and lowered his head down to them. What is he doing? Said Hitch, stepping away from the armored kaiju's large mouth. He wants us to get on, Sasha said. He does this to me sometimes, but why? Mickey shut her eyes for a moment and looked into the minds of the 2 kaijus. After a second she opened her eyes and looked to the others. They want to take us somewhere. Where? Sanda asked. Mickey looked back at the kaijus. They think they know how to help. Oh no, I've been on a kaiju before and I don't want to do it again, said Hitch as she hid behind Marlowe. Yeah, I'm kind of with her on this one, said Marlowe. Unless you're ordering us, that is. Well, I'm going, said Sasha as she used her gear to jump up behind Anguirus's horn. Sasha, shouted Connie, we're supposed to stay here. Go with them. Everyone looked at Mickey. I looked into Gorosaurus's head. He sensed Maul's concern about the Nebulans. Sometimes the gift is a two-way streak. He wants to rid our world of them. And if Anguirus trusts him, then I think we should as well. Mickey then turned to Maul and Laura. You two go with them, I think you two would be of most help. Maul and Laura both nodded, then Sanda walked to them. I am going to. Maul smiled and then grabbed Sanda and used her gear to send them up to join Sasha. Connie groaned, oh fine. He looked at Marlowe and Hitch. You two stay with Mickey, hopefully we'll be back soon. I hope. After that Connie used his gear and joined the rest, then Anguirus lifted his head up slowly, then turned to Gorosaurus. Gorosaurus roared softly at him and turned to the forest and started walking with Anguirus following behind. Good luck, Mickey smiled. Let's hope they don't get eaten, said Hitch. Marlowe slapped her on the head. They continued the journey to whatever the dinosaur kaiju was leading them, and as they walked the group noticed several titans, except they weren't moving. In fact, these titans looked different from the ones they've seen. They were on the ground with their skin blistered. It almost seemed as if they were melting. Wow, what happened here? Connie said, looking disturbed at the sight of the melting titans. Must have something to do with that smell in the air, said Sasha, holding her nose. In fact, the further down they went, the less and less life they saw. Barren soil, dead trees, even the air itself seemed to feel expired. I'd think it was the cause of that smog monster Gordon was talking about, said Maul. Laura looked around and saw the tress looking near dead, the leaves all on the ground and lost their green color. Soon as they continued on, they noticed a few dead bodies of kaijus on the ground, each sharing the same decaying look as the titans. Then suddenly Anguirus stopped. The group held tight to his horn as this action. Sasha looked down at him. Hey, what's dash? Sasha gasped as she looked to Anguirus' gaze. There, dead on the ground, were 3 other Anguirus. The 2 bodies were around his size while the third was small. They were the bodies of parents trying in vain to protect their child. Sasha knew this was the first time Anguirus saw others of his kind. She just wished when he did they would be alive. She placed her hand off of his horn and onto a patch of scale, giving him a warm, sympathetic touch. Anguirus ignored it and continued on his way. Sasha guessed this was due to him not having too much of an opinion on his own kin, perhaps it was due to him being raised by a human rather than his own kind. "Don't worry, Sasha," Mal said. "I think he appreciates the thought." Only 30 minutes more. They reached where Gorosaurus was leading them, a shoreline on the opposite side of the island. The peculiar thing there, beside the gigantic remains of what looked like walls, was a collection of kaiju. "Wow," Laura said, looking wide-eyed at the sight, the others sharing his expression. There were 2 parent varans with their young, 3 kamakuri near the edge of the group, a few baragons, at least 1 kumunga they could see, a bagora and 2 rhinoceros. Those were the only ones there they recognized. There was 1 gigantic king cobra, curled around a clutch of eggs. On a rock sat 2 giant condors. A huge squid monster, named Krex, waded in the water. From the sea came a titanosaurus and a Kamiabas, working together to pull a gigantic shrimp-like animal onto shore. With a simple roar, the 2 summoned the beach-going kaiju to feast on their catch. In the center of all this monster commuting was a massive pile of trees. They were interwoven into a shape similar to a birdbath, like an intricate bird's nest. My goodness," Sanda said. "They are all like Dada herd," Sasha said with her accent sneaking out. "Hang is going to be sorry she missed this," said Connie. You guys should look up," Laura said with her face looking disturbed. And when they looked up, they were met with a disturbed shock. What they thought was trees, which they were once, but the branches looked to be clawed or ripped off and looked more like spikes, and implanted at the top were 1 or 2 titans each. In fact, it seems there are 7 spikes with titans skewered at the top. The group saw a varan rip an arm out one of the titan's sockets and tossed it to its little ones. Mal swallowed a bit. "I would be impressed if I wasn't a little disturbed at this." As Gorosaurus stepped forward only 2 steps before something leaped in front of him. It was a Zilla, this one with red scales, black scuts, and a pinkish throat and belly. The Zilla sniffed Goro and his large offering of fish, seemingly happy at the sight of the visitor and his offering. He made a short trumpet-like sound in excitement. "Great, another one," said Connie. The Zilla happily was about to grab the net from Goro, but once his face was in the right position, he looked behind Gorosaurus. When he noticed Anguirus behind him, his expression changed from positive curiosity turned to absolute fear. As he backed up, Anguirus came closer to him, almost as if to reason with the frightened creature. As he got in touching distance, the Zilla threw back his head and let out a loud roar. What was weird about this roar was that it sounded bizarrely similar to Anguirus' roar. Like an oddly close approximate copy of the sound Anguirus makes. So that's why old Mimic sounded so much like the great predator, Sasha said to herself. He's like a giant monster mocking bird. Indeed, it was for this exact reason the Zilla was acting as the beach's lookout. For as he mimicked Anguirus' roar, the other beach kaiju suddenly reacted in panic. The king cobra held her clutch tighter and hissed in anger. Younger kaiju hid behind the older monsters, of whom were also in a state of panic. "I think we're in trouble," said Laura. Mal was the first to realize what was happening. The monsters here knew the sound of Anguirus, and the Zilla sentry alerted them all. Some of these monsters must have been survivors from Tanakibo, ones who managed to escape the town's fury during their hunt. Sasha supposed that her adopted son had a reputation in the forest. Anguirus lowered his head, alerting the humans that this was their stop. Once everyone was off, he continued on without them, heading towards the beach. "Be nice to them," Sasha shouted. Goro and Anguirus dropped their nets in front of the kaiju community, clearly offering them as tribute. Anguirus made a few quick noises, almost as if to have a conversation with the beach kaiju. His little chat was soon interrupted by a large object crashing down in front of him. The object unfurled its giant wings, revealing itself to be Rodden. Connie started. "He was not red before, right? That is the first thing on your mind?" Mal replied, but she along with her companions started to get nervous at kaiju. With a few loud chirps, Rodden silenced the frightened monsters, calming the crowd. Anguirus backed a few steps as Rodden flapped his wings once, propelling him up and backwards onto the top of the wooden object, sitting on it like a massive throne. He gave a cold glare at the spiked protector. I think HHE is I in charge," Sanda stuttered. "What was your first clue?" Connie started, the silence when he roared at the others or the nest/throne. Sasha shushed Connie as Angwyrus took a few steps towards Rodden, causing the kaiju pteranodon to growl with menaces. Slowly Angwyrus placed the net down on the ground and nudged it to Rodden. One of the Kamakuras moved towards the net, but with a surprise to the arrivals, Rodden's 3 horns glowed and the pteranodon fired a red beam near the insect kaijus, causing it to return to the others. "He can do that too?" Connie said in shock. "When can he do that?" Rodden turned back at Angwyrus and let out a loud roar at him, but Angwyrus stood his ground and made a couple of roars back at him. "Is it my imagination, or are they talking to each other?" Connie asked. "It looks like it," said Sonda. Connie looked at Sasha. "Well, what is Angwyrus saying?" "What makes you think I know what he's saying?" Sasha replied. "Well, you kind of raised him. I also help raise horses, but that doesn't mean I know what they are saying either." "But we can." Everyone looked at Mal and Laura. "We can know what they are saying," Laura said. "With the use of our telepathy," Mal added. Why you can kano ww what they say," said Sonda, amazed. "Why didn't you tell us you could do that?" Sasha asked. Mal and Laura looked at each other and back at the others and gave them a shrug, and both said, "Nobody asked us." Connie face-palmed himself and with a groan asked them, "Well, can you tell us what they are talking about?" They both nodded and looked at the kaijus. They closed their eyes and focused their minds on the kaijus as Angwyrus continued roaring at Rodden. "Okay," Mal started, "Angwyrus is saying to Rodden that the smell of death in the forest is caused by invaders with strange enemies, and he asks that we all work together to end them." Gorosaurus placed his net down and roared. "Goro agrees," Laura said. Then Rodden glared at him and Gorosaurus took a couple steps back slightly. Rodden turned back at Angwyrus and roared at him. "So what does Rodden say?" Connie asked. Mal started. "Rodden is saying you dare come here and order me, after our fight that cost me my mate? Why should I listen to you?" Angwyrus roars once more and Laura translates, "Because if we work together, both our herds coming together we can dash." Then Rodden let out a roar that sounded more like laughter. Soon Rodden stopped and roared again. "Your herd? You mean the small ones?" Laura translated. "Small ones?" Connie asked. Mal turned to him and answered before turning back, "Rodden means us." Then a Varan stepped up and joined the conversation. "These small ones are just like the invaders. You want us to protect these creatures when they invested our home," Mal translated. Then a Baragon came up. "If these invaders are killing off the small ones, then let them be killed. Their kind don't belong here anyway," Laura translated. Then the Kumanga came up. "Yes, they're right," Mal translated. "Great," Connie sighed, "just what we need, more things that want us dead." Gorosaurus roared at the others. "These small ones may have invested our land, but they are nothing compared to what these invaders have. Better to end them than the small ones," Laura translated. "Well, at least we have him on our side," Sasha added. Rodden snarled at Gorosaurus, but this time Goro stood his ground. Angwyrus roared again at Rodden. Mal saying that he was still trying to convince Rodden and the others. The Rodden raised both wings up and let out another roar directly at Angwyrus, and after that both Mal and Laura gasped in shock. What happened? Sonda asked. "What did Rodden say?" Connie said to the two telepaths. "Did he say he was going to help?" Laura looked at them blushing and Mal gave Rodden a stink eye. "No," Mal answered, "he did not say that." "Well, what did he say?" Sasha asked. "Let's just say you don't want to know what he said," Laura answered. Then she whispered to herself, "What terrible language." Then Rodden leaped off of his nest/throne and stood in front of Angwyrus and roared at him. "Rodden is telling Angwyrus to leave now at once," Mal translated. But Angwyrus took a step closer to Rodden and roared at him. Angwyrus said he is not leaving till they agreed to help us, Laura translated. Rodden glared at Angwyrus and he did the same. Then Rodden let out a low growl. Rodden said if he wants us to fight for him, then he first must face him in combat. Mal started. "Defeat him and the others will do what Angwyrus says, but if Rodden wins?" "Well?" Sasha asked. Mal sighed and finished. "If Rodden wins he will kill Angwyrus and Gorosaurus and us?" Sonda finished and Mal nodded. Connie gulped. You know, maybe we don't really need their help, why don't we just dash? Then Anguirus let out a loud roar at Rodden. Laura Sweet dropped and said to the others, Anguirus accepted. What? The others shouted. Even Gorosaurus looked shocked over this decision, except for Sasha as she grabbed her hair in frustration. Why does always think of fighting, she growled. Probably got that obsession from you, Connie said, except yours is food. That comment made Sasha hit Connie over the head. Rodden flapped his wings in domination as the other kaiju stood back from the upcoming fight. Gorosaurus looked at Anguirus, then at Rodden, and he too stepped back. We should all do the same and step back, Maul added. But what about Anguirus SS? Sonda asked. SHSH should NNT we dash. Don't worry, Sasha said, looking at Anguirus, he can handle this overgrown bird, he doesn't need our help. Connie looked at Sasha with concern. You're sure? Connie put his hand on her shoulder and she grasped his hand and started to shake a little, but she managed to answer him with a nod and looked nervously at the two kaijus. Both Rodden and Anguirus circled each other and never keeping their eyes off the other, both waiting for one of them to make the first move. As they circled, all the other kaijus started to stomp their legs, hands, claws, tails in a single rhythm. Even Gorosaurus started doing it as he stomped his feet. The rhythm started small, then started to grow louder and more faster. Then Rodden let out a beam from his beak near Anguirus, causing him to move back, and at this Rodden quickly fly over him low, striking Anguirus' head with his chest spikes. Don't let him trick you, Anguirus. Sasha shouted, show him what you're made of. Anguirus growled in frustration at that attack. He looked up only to be knocked down by the same attack. Rodden then flew above Anguirus and then fired his beam at his back. Anguirus roared in pain from the beam as it continued to strike him. Then Anguirus crouched down and he raised his tail up and tried to ignore the pain from the beam. Then with a slam of his tail, Anguirus quickly leaped up with his back heading towards Rodden. Rodden stopped his attack and dodged the spike back, but did not notice how close his leg was to Anguirus until the armored kaiju grabbed it with his mouth and pulled Rodden down with him. The other kaiju stopped at this action, but Rodden quickly got up from the ground and was about to fly again until he was knocked down by Anguirus' sonic roar. Rodden grabbed his head in pain, and as he regained his hearing he was tackled down from behind by Anguirus. The armored kaiju placed both his arms and legs on Rodden's wings, preventing him from flying. Rodden tried to get up and knock him off, but Anguirus stayed, keeping him down as well as placing his hand on Rodden's head and covered his beak, preventing another beam from coming out. Rodden looked at his attacker as he showed his fangs, either to let out another sonic roar or to bite down on Rodden's neck. Rodden closed his eyes waiting for the death strike, but it never came. Instead, Rodden felt Anguirus getting off of him and letting go of his beak. Rodden stood up and looked behind him and saw Anguirus looking at him. What is he doing? Connie hissed. He could have finished him off. Why did he dash? But before he could say anything else, Sasha covered his mouth and smiled at the act. The other kaijus witnessed this action. Some were amazed, some were confused, and most but not all were disappointed that he did not kill Rodden. Rodden looked at Anguirus with confusion and felt a sense of honor about it. Anguirus let out a soft groan. Laura translated, so will you fight with us now? Back to the walls during the start of a new fight. Play Armored Titan theme. Godzilla and Monster X charged at each other. As they were nearly close to each other, Monster X leaped up, causing Godzilla to pause, thinking he was going to jump over him, but instead Monster X did a spin and striking Godzilla with his clawed hands and whipped him with his tail. Godzilla grabbed his face, not noticing Monster X land behind him. Then Monster X did a low spinning sweep kick, knocking Godzilla down, and quickly grabbed his tail and using some surprising strength lifted Godzilla up and slammed him on the ground. Then X lifted him up again, and this time overhead, and slammed him on the other side. Jet Jaguar had enough and started charging in, but Gigan teleported in front of the robot and slashed him with his saw arms. Monster X was about to do it again. Godzilla quickly let out a fireball right at X's face. With him distracted, Godzilla let out an atomic beam at Monster X's chest, pushing back, but when the beam finished, Monster X brushed it off, and his eyes as well as the eyes on the split heads on his shoulder glowed briefly, and both eyes fired a lightning bolt at Godzilla, causing the Monster King to roar in pain at this attack. Hedorah let out a chuckled roar at Godzilla's pain, and Cyberzilla started heading towards Gigan to aid him with Jet Jaguar while Biollante watched the fight. The plant hybrid creature looked at Monster X, and for some reason unknown to her, he felt somewhat familiar to her. Like she knew him. Damn, Where did that thing came from? Randy shouted as he watched fight on a monitor. It's like something out of a bad metal rock band poster. Looks like the Nebulans had one more trump card on their sleeves, Nick said, observing Monster X attacking Godzilla again. It looks like this one is mainly focusing on Godzilla. Miyuki watched as both Gigan and Cyberzilla ganged up on Jet Jaguar, preventing him from aiding Godzilla. Sir, what about Jet Jaguar? Gordon reached for his earpiece. Levi, is your team down there yet? Gordon listened to for a bit, then nodded. Good. Gordon looked at the main monitor. Alright, let's get those overgrown cyborgs off our robot. The Gotengo turned and the drill started to move as electricity circled it. Gordon was about to order the attack when one of the crew members shouted, "Captain, Hedorah is coming at us again." Hedorah once again took on his flying form and headed straight towards the ship. The Gotengo quickly started to turn towards the upcoming enemy, but Hedorah fired his I-beams at the sides of the ship, pushing it back. Then Hedorah flew overhead and his sulfuric mist started to burn and melt parts of the ship. "Come on!" Gordon shouted. "We are not going down by some living dust cloud with eyes like a Veer Dash." "Captain, it's coming again," shouted Randy. As Hedorah was about to attack again, suddenly he was hit from behind by a beam, knocking him down right on top of Cyberzilla, causing the cyborg creature to roar in pain as parts of his flesh started to melt. "What the hell was that?" Gordon asked. Then a loud familiar roar echoed across the battlefield, causing all combatants to look at the direction of the roar. For in between the broken standing walls, Anguirus stands on all fours with Rodden overhead, and then multitudes of other roars were heard, and then more kaijus appeared and stood by Anguirus on both sides of him. On his left there was Gorosaurus, a Varan, 2 Baragons, a Rhinoceros, and Komanga. While on his right there was Titanosaurus, Kamiabas, Azilla, Cyrex, and King Cobra. While overhead joining Rodden in the sky are 3 Kamakuri and Bagora. Godzilla looked at the size of the large crowd of kaijus, but are they friends or foes? Jet Jaguar on the other hand gave them a thumbs up. "Oh yeah," shouted Randy with excitement, "the cavalry. Look at them all," Miyuki said in shock. "Why are they here?" Gordon watched the kaijus. "As long as they're here to fight the others. Who gives a shit?" Sasha, Connie, Maul and Sonda held onto Anguirus's horn, looking over the grounds. "Look at it," Connie said, looking over what was once a town on the walls. Then he glared at the Nebulan ship. "Those bugs are going to pay for this." Sasha nodded and looked down at Anguirus. "Okay, give the order." Anguirus then let out a sonic roar and then charged into the battle with all the other kaijus joining him. As the kaijus charged, Anguirus noticed Cyberzilla and instantly recognized him and charged straight at him as the rest of the kaijus broke off and headed towards the other foes, ignoring Godzilla and Jet Jaguar. "Okay, this looks like this is where we get off." Maul shouted, and they instantly used their gears to hook onto one of the damaged houses as Anguirus neared his target. Cyberzilla looked at the charging kaiju, and somewhere in his cyborg mind he knew who that was, and it filled him with rage and knew one thing. This creature was going to pay for ripping his arm off. Cyberzilla roared and charged at Anguirus, and both of them clashed with each other. Anguirus used his arms to grapple with Cyberzilla, each of them trying to knock the other one down. Then Cyberzilla let out an atomic heat ray at Anguirus, causing him to let go, resulting in Cyberzilla head-butting him down. Anguirus shook it off and then he let out his sonic roar, but the cyborg was prepared for this. His chest opened up, showing his sound-reflecting disc, and reflect the attack back at Anguirus. Anguirus roared in pain as he covered his ears, and by doing that gives Cyberzilla the time to unleash his energy missiles from his plates. The missiles managed to hit Anguirus, causing him to fall down in pain. "Oh no you don't," Sasha shouted as she activated her gear and started heading towards the cyborg. "Sasha, stop, why do I bother?" Connie sighed as he joined her, and also joining them is Gorosaurus. Gorosaurus stood by Anguirus and roared at his attacker. Cyberzilla charged at Goro, about to attack, but then felt a slash on his neck. Both Sasha and Connie managed to wound the cyborg, hopping to cause some distraction. Cyberzilla paused to try and get his tiny attackers. That was a mistake, as Gorosaurus used his jaws and grabbed a hold of the cyborg's neck. Gigan witnessed his attacker's predicament and was about to assist, but then Jet Jaguar did a roundhouse kick, knocking him down. Enraged Gigan fired his beam again, but Jet dogged it quickly. Gigan was about to do it again, but then was knocked down from behind by Bagora. Gigan saw the large red bat flying and flew up to attack it. Gigan readied his blades to cut this creature down. Bagora then turned around and flew towards Gigan. As Gigan was about to cut the bat in half, Bagora unleashed his own sonic attack straight at Gigan. The amazing high frequency of the attack cracked Gigan's visor, blinding him. Then Bagora used his wings to knock the cyborg out of the sky and back to the ground. Cyberzilla tried to claw at Gorosaurus, but the Dino Kaiju did not let go until Cyberzilla unleashed his missiles at him. Cyberzilla was ready for another attack, but then Sasha landed on left side of his face and Connie on the right. "Ready?" Connie shouted to Sasha. She nodded and both of them raised their blades. "This is for getting my boy that scar," Sasha shouted, and at once they slammed the blades in Cyberzilla's eye. Cyberzilla roared in pain and tried to swipe them off, but Sasha and Connie both acted fast and used their gears to jump off him. Blinded Cyberzilla did not see Anguirus slam him with roll attack, knocking him down. Then Goro quickly used his jaw to rip Cyberzilla's chest and ripping the dish out. But the cyborg was not out yet as he tried to claw his attack and unleashing a heat ray randomly. Then Rodden flying overhead saw Cyberzilla and used his beam to hit Cyberzilla's chest and on contact destroyed Cyberzilla as let out one last roar. "Good shot," Laura said, holding onto Kumonga's hairs on her back. Gorosaurus roared in victory, but Anguirus growled in annoyance. "What's wrong with him?" Connie asked, sitting on one of the damaged house with Sasha. "Well, you don't have to be a mind reader to figure it out," Sasha started. "He wanted to be the one to kill that thing." Connie responded by rolling his eyes. Gigan got up and raged. Despite the cracked visor, he could still see epically as Bagora was about to swoop in for another attack. Gigan spread his arms and from a compartment on the sides of his chest he unleashed two razor discs at the Bat Kaiju. Bagora could not see them until it was too late. One of them managed to cut parts of Bagora's left ear and make a tear on the wings. Bagora shrieked in pain as the disc cut some parts of his body, causing the bat to fall to the ground. Gigan walked to the bat as the disc returned to his body. As he raised his saw arm to decapitate Bagora, a spray of webs started falling down on Gigan at once. Gigan turned, seeing Kumonga unleashing a never-ending assault of webs from her mouth. Gigan roared at the spider and tried to use his saw arms, but the webs managed to clog the blades on both arms. Then the Zilla unleashed his atomic breath at Gigan from behind. Enraged Gigan unleashed his razor discs again at Zilla. Zilla then used his speed to try and escape from the discs, but they continued to follow him. Then an idea came to his head thanks to Laura, who observed the discs' movement when they attacked Bagora. Zilla turned around and headed towards Gigan, and as he got close, Zilla jumped over Gigan. Gigan turned around to attack Zilla but then failed to realize his mistake. The razor discs slashed across Gigan's neck, instantly decapitating him. The discs were about to hit Kumonga and Laura, but Kamiabas jumped in and used his shell as a shield to block, and with success the discs were stuck on the shell. "Thanks," Laura said, then looked at the headless cyborg. "Yikes, talk about losing your head," Laura laughed, but then saw the headless Gigan still moving and the blades still working. "Oh, you've got to be kidding me." The headless Gigan continued walking with both saw blades moving ready to strike. Then Rodden descended down from the sky and stopped midway, and before Gigan could act, Rodden fired his beam straight down into the neck, and instantly the headless cyborg exploded, leaving only the two sawed hands remained. Rodden landed down and roared in victory. Laura looked at one of Kumonga's eyes. "Does he always show off like that?" The spider kaiju simply nodded. Godzilla looked at Monster X and he back at him. Both ignoring the other kaijus, Monster X was about to unleash another electric attack but then saw Rhinosaurus charging right at him. Acting quickly, X grabbed a hold of Kaiju's horn and swung him aside and headed right towards Godzilla. Godzilla was about to act when King Cobra burst from the ground and started constricting around Monster X. X roared at Serpent Kaiju trying to break free, and then King Cobra spit her venomous globs at Monster X, blinding him. But despite this, Monster X used his incredible strength to break free from King Cobra's grip and knocked her aside and tried to remove the glob from his face. This distraction allowed Godzilla to use his atomic beam at X, knocking him to the ground. Then Titanosaurus joined in and used his fin tail to create gust of wind to knock Monster X down. Hedorah resumed his final form and tried to choose his battle, but due to the scent of death on him, none of the other kaijus dared to go near him. Soon Hedorah set his sights on the Gotengo again. He fired his I-beams at the ship once again, but the ship managed to dodge the attack. Sonda saw Hedorah's attack. He knew this one besides the new white one was a threat, but no one could get near it due to its toxic abilities. But Sanda has to try something. He was going to prove himself more, and if it means facing this thing, then he is going to fight. Sanda used his gear as he got near Hedorah, but not to touch to avoid breathing in the toxic fumes. Sanda quickly bit his hand and started to transformation. As Sanda's Titan form was being created, the electricity from the transformation managed to hit Hedorah, causing the smog monster to cry out in pain. Hedorah turned to cause of the pain and saw the fully formed brown gargantuan Titan Sanda. Hedorah fired an acidic sludge at the Titan shifter. Sanda dodged, but the sludge managed to hit his arm. Sanda roared in pain as it started to melt his arm. Sanda then noticed something about the smog monster. It seemed parts of his body from the leg and arm looked as if it was dried. Before Sanda could guess, Hedorah fired more acidic sludge upon the gargantuan Titan. This time Sanda managed to dodge more successfully. Maul, seeing the light from the transformation, managed to catch up with Sanda and landing on his shoulder, glancing down where the sludge hit Sanda's arm, now showing bone and black rotting flesh. "Are you crazy?" Maul shouted. "What do you think you're doing going up against this thing?" Sanda then pointed to the dry parts of Hedorah's body. Maul used her telepathy to see into Sanda's mind, and seeing what he saw at the moment after his transformation. "You think the lighting during the transformation can weaken it?" Maul asked. Sanda nodded his head. "I have plan," he said. Maul read his mind and became aware of his plan. "Sounds risky. Do you really want to do it?" Sanda nodded. Maul took a breath and kissed his large cheek. "Good luck and be careful." Sanda blushed after that, and as Maul leaped off him, Sanda charged towards Hedorah. This time the smog monster fired his eye beams at Sanda. Some of the beam managed to destroy his other arm, but that did not stop Sanda as he leaped towards Hedorah and slammed right into Hedorah's chest and used his teeth to grip onto the smog monster. Soon Hedorah's acidic body started to melt Sanda's Titan body, causing Sanda to leap out of the nape of the neck, and as he did he concentrated and started another transformation, and like before, the electricity started harming Hedorah, causing parts of his body to dry up. Sanda's plan started to work, and no sooner did his Titan body started to form, Sanda used his gear to leap away from the constructing body and did the process again, creating more electricity and drying up Hedorah. Screeching in pain, Hedorah tried to shake Sanda off of him, but the Titan shifter continued on with his death-defying and suicidal plan. Finally Monster X managed to get the glob off his face and was about to attack when he noticed the light coming off of Hedorah. He turned and saw the many incomplete parts of Titans on Hedorah and more electricity coming off from him. X then noticed the Titan forms looked like Sanda's form, and as Sanda turned again he was about to continue on until he saw Monster X looking at him. "San.de." Monster X shouted. Sanda was surprised that his one knew him. Then in shock Sanda saw X's shoulders. The faces on them looked almost like the armored Titan. Sanda did not believe what he was thinking, but he took a gamble. "Reiner? Traitor!" Enraged, Monster X fired a barrage of lightning at Sanda, but Sanda was finally knocked off by Hedorah and was about to attack Sanda when the smog monster was struck by X's attack. The resolute of this powerful attack managed to dry Hedorah up fully. The Gotengo took full advantage of this. "Fire the cannons," Gordon ordered. An electrical beam fired from the drill and completely destroyed the dried body of the smog monster, forever ending his toxic wrath. Sanda fell to the ground, and on contact his Titan form started to crumble until only his human form was all that remains. Maul used her gear to land close to Sanda. "Are you alright?" she said as she looked him over. She saw a black scare on his arm, but he could still move it. "I am not Gigi going to do that again," Sanda said, standing up and rubbing his arm. Before Maul could say anything, Monster X in a fit of rage charged at them, but was then rammed at his side by Zilla, thereby giving Maul and Sanda the chance to use their gear and land on Cyrex, and used him to make their escape. As Monster X got up, Godzilla stood next to Zilla, quickly glancing at him and put more focus on X. Monster X glared at the two kaijus as Godzilla and Zilla both charged at him. For some time Biollante took no notice of the other kaijus and just looked at Monster X. This creature felt familiar to her, but she could not understand why. Then suddenly she roared in pain as the two Baragons used their flames to torch two of her main tendrils. Enraged, Biollante called on her mouth tendrils to attack. One of the Baragons quickly burrowed to ground as the second one used her flames to burn a couple of the mouth tendrils. Suddenly the ground where the first Baragon burrowed burst as that Baragon is seen being held by more of Biolante's tendrils. The female Baragon roared for her mate and watched helplessly as her mate was chocked to death. Biolante then tossed the kaiju carcass away. In great fury, the female Baragon charged at the plant monster and started clawing at her chest and used her fangs to rip off some of the tendrils. Biolante was about to retaliate, but then a Varan started attacking from behind. Then the 3 Kamakuri started attacking her head. Then from her left the rhinoceros charged right in and stabbed her from her side. Then Bagora came and attacked her right bit down on her neck. Biolante made a mistake. Once you kill a member of a pack you face their wrath. Biolante roared in pain and in frustration. She tried to use her tendrils, but each one was either swatted or ripped off by one of her attackers, and due to being so many of them she could not use her acid sap on them. As the Varan clawed Biolante's neck, the kaiju failed to notice a small metal object attached to her skin. Then as Varan raised his claws he clawed the skin off along with the metal object. After that action Biolante instantly froze. Images started to appear in her mind. Being held by an old man. Watching a boy going into the jaws of a titan. Talking to 2 familiar boys. Friends? Facing someone and defeating him, then facing a girl, a foe or friend? Then climbing up a large wall. Then looking in fear at a large insect and feeling a sharp pain in her neck. She closed her yellow eyes forgetting the attack on her, and when she opened eyes, they changed to blue. What happened? She thought, then she felt more pain on her body. And was shocked at the creatures attacking her. What's going on? What are she opened her mouth, but only a roar came. What was that, she wondered? Is she in Titan form? Then Annie looked up and saw her reflection on the underside of the alien ship. In horror she created more tendrils and pushed all her attackers away onto the ground and roared constantly, "What happened to me? What have they done? Why? Why?" Soon she started attacking everything, kaijus, rubble, anything that's standing her path. Godzilla tried to tail whip Monster X, but X dodged the attack. Then Zilla used his flame breath from behind, but Monster X was unaffected by the attack and grabbed a hold of Zilla's neck and twisted it, instantly killing the kaiju. Godzilla roared at the death of one of his allies and was about to unleash an atomic beam, but then both of them heard the agonizing roar of Biolante. Monster X dropped the body and ran towards her. Godzilla glared. How dare his foe ignoring him? Rodden came down next to Godzilla and looked at the dead body of Zilla. Rodden then spotted the dead body of the male Baragon, Bagora's body with a tendril that pierced his skull, and the melting body of one of the Kamakuri. Rodden roared in rage and sorrow at the death of some of his herd. Monster X stopped in front of Biolante, barely feeling the tendrils striking him. Biolante looked at Monster X and was about to attack with her jaw, but then X raised his hand and spoke to her. Nie. Biolante paused, and as she looked again at the kaiju before her, somehow she instantly knew who he was. Na? Monster X nodded at this, and at that moment Biolante lowered her head and tears fell down from her face. Tears of happiness to see her friend and sadness for what has become of them now. X gently cupped her jaw and hugged her. Sasha, Connie, Mal, Laura, and Sonda witnessed the whole thing on one of the surviving houses. My God, those 2 kaijus are Annie and Reiner? Connie said in horror. I heard R.R. Reiner's SSS voice FRFR from that thing, Sonda said, acknowledging this fact. What have those bugs done to them? Sasha whispered. Laura covered her mouth as tears started to fall from her eyes while Mal turned around. Look. Skrionink. Instantly Monster X and Biolante turned the sound of the roar and saw Godzilla snarling at them, and by his sides are Rodden and Anguirus along with Jet Jaguar Gorosaurus, the surviving members of the kaiju herd, and the Gotengo overhead. Monster X stood in front of Biolante to protect her, but before anyone started to attack, an large explosion was heard above them. All looked up and saw parts of the Nebulan ship shacking and exploding. Then from the sides of the ship, something started to jump out. Chapter 22, All Out Strike Part 2, inside the Nebulan's mothership at the moment Monster X appeared. What is that creature? Historia said in shock over this new arrival. Natala smiled at her and said, I think the question you should be asking is who is or was that creature? Histoire looked at Natala and remembered what they did to Annie, then a horrible thought came to her, and almost as if Natala knew the question, the Nebulan Queen spoke first. No, it is not your beloved Emer. Histoire sighed in relief at that notion. Well, not yet anyway, said Natala. Historia glared at the alien queen. Then who is it? Natala watched as Monster X and Godzilla clashed. Why, another one of your former friends turned enemies? Reiner, I believe it was. Historia gasped at this, first Berthold, then Annie, and now Reiner. When will this end? Of course, unlike the others, Reiner actually wanted this, Natala said, something about revenge or something. Histoire looked at the image of Monster X as he fired lightning from his eyes and shoulders. Reiner could not have really wanted this, could he? Then Historia heard Natala laugh to herself. You know, it makes me think, the Nebulan Queen said, I wonder what we can turn Emer and Eren into? Don't you touch them, you bitch. Histoire shouted as she stood up, being the ruler she was meant to be. I will not allow you to turn any more of my friends into your monster slaves. Do you hear me? The room was quiet as all the Nebulans looked at Historia. Many of them itching to attack her should she make a move towards their queen. Then the room was filled with Natala's laughter. Oh, human bravado, it is the same no matter what universe we're in. Natala chuckled a little, then stopped as she looked at Historia like she was a silly child. Know this, my primitive matriarch. Natala began standing to her full height. Historia blinked, thinking the Nebulan Queen had gotten a bit bigger for a second. Unlike many of your friends, you have no power here, Natala started. You've never had any real power to begin with. Well, you almost had it when your father offered it to you, but you refused. Historia stood her ground, then Natala grabbed Histoire's bandaged arm and squeezed it. Historia was in pain, but she still stood her ground. Doing that shows and proves to me how imperfect your kind is, no matter the reality, and once Godzilla and your allies are dead and no longer a bothersome to me, the entire human race from this island to the next and the next until we cover the world, all humans will serve me and my kind for as long as we see fit. Then Natala leaned towards Histoire, but since I am a benevolent queen, I want make you witness it. I will dash my queen, you should see this, shouted a Nebulan. Natala sighed and looked at the screen, and to her shock she saw the Anguirus with what appears to be a clan of kaijus. What is the meaning of this? The sound of rage echoed in the command station and across the halls. Natala let go of Historia and grabbed the neck of the Nebulan near her. Wasn't I told that all the kaijus on this island were drove off or killed by Hedorah? Forgive me, my queen, but it was only a small handful of them, spoke the Nebulan in Natala's grasp. We thought they would pose no threat to Dash. Then snap was heard as Natala crushed the Nebulan's neck, killing it. All kaijus that are not under my command are always a threat. You all should have remembered that back in our universe. Am my queen? Natala glared at one of the Nebulans on the controls. What? She said with silent fury, slowly rising up. It would appear we've lost control over the latest cyborg as soon as it saw the Anguirus. Enraged, Natala tossed the Nebulan corpse at the other Nebulan. Then Natala sat down on her throne. Can anything else go wrong? Then a communication started on her left armchair. My queen, we have intruders in this ship. They appear to be the humans from the Gotengo and Dash, but the communication was lost when Natala slammed her fist on the armchair. Historia was about to move away when Natala pointed at her and two Nebulans garbed the human queen from side to side. Natala looked at her subjects with a cold face. I want every Nebulan to find those intruders and kill them all, now. Soon 5 Nebulans left the room to give the queen's orders. I want all our kaijus to destroy Godzilla. The robot, the kaijus and that frustrating machine, and if that can't be done then reactivate all our weapons and do the job ourselves. Then the remaining Nebulans worked on their panels and tried to follow the queen's commands. Then Natala looked at Histoire, then she pressed a button on her right armchair. Commander? Yes, my queen? Have you got all the humans down there? Yes, my queen, all the humans have been contained in the underground city. Then Natala gave Histoire a crazed look with smile added to it. You know, Histoire, I think I'll spare your people as well. Histoire trembled at that and the look. No, please don't. Historia pleaded. My queen, spoke the commander, waiting. Commander, I am giving you a new order. I want you and all your troops to kill every last human down there at once. Natala's smile widened as she saw the horrified look on Histoire. But please, Commander, start by killing all the children first. Yes, my queen, it will be done, the commander said, turning off its communication device. The Nebulan commander stood in red metal armor pads on its chest, shoulders, and head looked upon the gathered humans all huddled in separate pens. All the humans looked up at the ceiling of the underground city in fear as the sounds of the battle could be heard in sights of green tendrils seen in parts of the large cave. What is happening up there? Is it a Titan or a kaiju attack? Are we all going to die? Answer us, you demons. The one who shouted was one of the clergymen from the Wallists. Is this your doing? The clergyman shouted, wasn't destroying our precious walls enough? What are you going dash? Then a Nebulan grabbed the man's mouth and shoved him towards the ground. One more word out of you, ape, and you will wish a Titan ate you whole. The Nebulan threatened, causing many of the humans to back away in fear. The Nebulan commander walked towards the other Nebulans and used the hive communication to inform them of their queen's order. The commander walked up to one of the pens. Attention humans. You no longer have to worry about your sad, terrible little lives anymore. One of the children, a boy, made the mistake of stepping up towards the pen. You're going to let us go? In a way. The commander spoke as it crouched down. The young ones get to go first. The commander raised a clawed finger and beckoned the boy to be closer, but the child was very much afraid to go near it. Come now, boy, don't be shy, it will be over soon. The child could hear his parents call out to him, but the Nebulan was so close to him that he was petrified at the spot. But as the Nebulan commander was about to grab the child, a voice echoed across the underground. You will not harm an human, insect. All the Nebulans turned and looked up at one of the buildings and saw Commander Erwin along with 10 of his comrades behind him. Listen well. Erwin shouted, we are the Knights of the King in honor of the Great Predator, and we will not allow you to harm any humans. All the Nebulans paused and soon all of them started to laugh at him. The Nebulan commander took a step forward and held up a blaster as it shouted back at Erwin. Foolish ape. There are more of us down here than you. You are 10 and we are many. What hope do you have of defeating us? Well, how about us? Another voice echoed, this time behind the Nebulans. They looked and saw Hang standing in between two of the pens, and before any Nebulan could move, a red shot was fired, killing one of the Nebulans. Running from behind Hang are 15 M Squad soldiers with their own blasters at the ready. The Nebulan commander acted fast. It lifted its blaster at the closest pen and was about to fire on the humans when suddenly a fast blur moved behind it and the commander's head fell to the floor, cleaned right off and from its left. Levi with blades out. All at once the Knights of the King and the M Squad all started attacking the Nebulans. Hang quickly came to Levi. Nice / Levi, oh, I can't wait when this is all over and I get to examine the Nebulans' bodies. Oh, I could learn so much. Levi quickly put out a miniature blaster and fired behind Hang and killing the Nebulan coming at her. Levi looked at the blaster for a second, 4 eyes. I think I might start to like this thing. Erwin landed between his comrades. There will be more coming. I will try to free everyone while you and everyone handle the Nebulans here. Hang pointed behind him. When you said there will be more coming, you mean those ones? Erwin and Levi turned to where Hang was pointing and saw oncoming Nebulans holding blasters and blades of their own design. Levi sighed, sometimes I wish we were still fighting Titans. Erwin grinned, you and me both, Levi. Hang grinned as all three charged at the oncoming force. Tell me, which of you would like to become the next volunteer? Kubota smiled at the two Titan shifters, but Aaron and Emer gave no response, just silent glares. Ah, no one wants to speak out? Kubota grinned, well, I guess I have to pick myself then, but first. Kubota pushed a button on the cube and at once the barrier around Aaron and Emer was gone, but before the two could react, smaller claws came down and started grabbing both of them. The two tried to fight them off, but it was hopeless as the claws held both of them by the arms and legs in mid-air. What do you think, Fumio? Kubota said to his comrade, who do you think we should start first? Fumio looked at the hanging Titan shifters as they tired to struggle the hold from the claws. Well, it all depends on what kind of creature we would need, Kubota, Fumio answered. Perhaps we should bring out the garden. Garden? Aaron asked, pausing his struggle for a moment, and as he said that, Fumio pushed the bottom of the cube and behind the two Nebulans, the floor opened up and coming up was a row of different colored plants with strange abnormalities on them. Some of the plants looked like they had spikes growing out of them, some appeared to have hard shells on them, as well as some had appendages of unknown origin. You like? Fumio smiled. I personally think of myself as a gardener at some points. What kind of plants are they? Emer said, struggling to free herself. Kubota chuckled. Why, these plants contain DNA from many creatures that we deem to someday be of great use to our species. Normally it is hard to extract DNA from a creature once it has been dead and rotten, so we sliced the DNA with our own special plants so they could hold the DNA. Kubota then cupped Emer's chin in his hand. In fact, dear Ms. Leonhardt, in her Titan form swallowed one of these plants that contained the DNA of Godzilla. Of course not your Godzilla, but then Kubota moved his hand fast before Emer could take a bit out of it. Ha ha ha. You almost had me there, Emer. Then Kubota punched her in the stomach, knocking all the air out of her. But not clever enough. Kubota growled. Leave her alone. Eren shouted, or I'll dash you'll what, Mr. Jaeger? Fumio spoke, turn into your Titan form? Go ahead then try. Eren was about to do such that, but then he thought this must be what they wanted. They want Eren to turn into the attack Titan so that they can make him into a monster like they did with Annie and Reiner. Emer knew this as well, and both of them knew what the other was thinking. They were not going to give those bugs the satisfaction. Kubota and Fumio looked at the Titan shifters. You know what I think? Kubota? Fumio said, I think they won't transform. It would seem so. Kubota nodded. Fumio smiled. Are you thinking what I'm thinking? Kubota smiled back, indeed, but first my body could do with a stretch. Fumio nodded, indeed, we have been wearing these for a while now. Then all at once Fumio and Kubota's bodies started to expand, and Eren and Emer both watched in disgust as the two Nebulans shed their human forms and into their true Nebulan forms, except both Fumio and Kubota looked different from the other Nebulans. While the rest of the Nebulans stood hunched, these two stood upright like a human, and while Fumio had the same mouth as the others of his kind, Kubota's is more pointed like a pincer. Kubota bent down to grab his glasses that fell off during the transformation. You don't actually need them, you know, Fumio said. Kubota put the glasses on the brim of his pincer mouth. They make me feel more distinguished. Then Kubota pushed another button from the sides of the cube and a small injector needle came out. Kubota grabbed it and headed towards the garden. And what are you doing? Fumio asked. Kubota bent down looking at a green scale plant and used the needle to draw out a red liquid from the plant. Why, I'm preparing to give Mr. Jaeger a shot, that is all. Ah yes, fresh G cells. Eren did not understand what Kubota was planning, but he could guess, and he instantly knew this will not end well. Kubota, Fumio started, the queen gave us an order not to experiment on Eren Jaeger yet. Oh, don't fret, it is only a small dose, Kubota explained, showing Fumio the needle. See, the worst that could happen is if he grows a tail or something. After all, as I mentioned during the process with Annie, the change only accelerates when in Titan form. Fumio scratched his mandibles and nodded, very well, but if the change is more than what you said it is, then you get to explain it to the queen, not I. Kubota agreed and touched the top of the cube, causing the claws holding Eren to move closer down towards Kubota. Kubota walked behind Eren, and using the cube again, the claws made Eren in a laying position. Eren tried to free himself, but Kubota held Eren's head and positioned the needle at his neck. Leave him alone. Emer shouted, if you guys want to experiment on someone, do it to me. Oh, don't worry, Emer, Fumio said, you'll get your chance soon enough. Maybe we'll turn you into a bug or an ape. Perhaps we should show the transformation to your beloved queen. The Nebulan chuckled, making Emer shake in anger and slightly in fear at the sound of the insect laughter. Eren tried to trigger his Titan transformation, but he was somehow having trouble doing it. He did not know if it was something to do with the Nebulans or when his mind was connected with Godzilla, but for right now Eren was at the Nebulans' mercy. And it does not look like he would get any. Kubota's mandibles clicked as he chuckled, oh, Eren Jaeger. I can't wait to see what you'll become. Then he pushed the needle in Eren's neck and started slowly injecting the blood of Godzilla into him. Then suddenly the side of the wall was blasted open, causing the two Nebulans to jump incredible distance away from the explosion, and at once the sounds of blasters echoed from the hole and bodies of dead Nebulans were tossed into the room. Then coming in are Ozaki and Kazama holding their blaster and pointed at the two Nebulans, and coming behind them Jean, Mikasa, and Armin. Well, you guys took your sweet ass time, Emer replied, happy to see her friends. Emer. Armin shouted. Eren, shouted Mikasa. Ozaki and Kazama kept themselves in front of the others and pointed their blasters at the Nebulans, and the Nebulans kept their glance at them. The Queen's elite, Ozaki said, keeping his blaster aimed at the aliens. This time you two and your queen won't be going anywhere except hell. Fumio quickly glanced at the cube and was about to reach the device, but then it was quickly destroyed by Kazama's blaster. I don't think so, Bug Boy. At that moment the clawed hands released both Eren and Ymir, causing them to drop on the ground. Mikasa was the first to act as she checked up on Eren. Eren, are you okay? Mikasa saw Eren rub his neck and saw a shattered object, probably a needle, and it had blood splattered around it. I'm fine, Mikasa, Eren said, rubbing his neck. He could stand a little, but he was feeling slightly sick. Well, I'm not fine, Ymir said, standing up. She gave the two Nebulans a death glare. In fact, I'm pissed off. Ymir started walking towards the two Nebulans as she held her finger to her mouth. You bugs wanted me to transform? Well, here you go. Ymir bit down and instantly transformed into the Jaw Titan. Once the transformation was finished, she let out a loud roar and charged right at them. Time to leave, I think, Fumio. Indeed, Kubota. As the Jaw Titan was close enough to swallow them, both Nebulans' backs opened up, revealing pointed sharp-like wings, and as quick as a blink they flew up, dodging the Titan Shifter's attack. They can fly? Jean groaned. Of course, why not? The Jaw Titan was about to try and leap at them, but then more Nebulans entered the room from other entrances that opened up around the walls of the room. Ozaki and Kazama started blasting the other Nebulans, and Jean and Mikasa activated their gears and used their blades and joined the fight. Eren, can you still fight? Armin asked. Eren was about to bite his hand but then started to tremble and fall, but Armin quickly caught his friend. I don't know, Eren said weakly. They did something to me, I don't know if I can. Fumio and Kubota managed to enter the upper floors of the ship by using an entrance above the room they escaped. Well, that could have gone better, Fumio said, closing the door on the floor by keypad on the wall. We must inform Her Majesty of the intruders, said Kubota. I'm already aware of them. Fumio and Kubota turned to see a screen showing the face of Queen Natala. Both of them bowed instantly and spoke at once. My queen. Let them have the notion of trying to stop us, Natala spoke. It would make their defeat so much more delicious. My queen, it is no doubt that they will go after you next, Fumio spoke. Perhaps we should join you in dash. No need, Natala said, lifting her hand. I believe the human term is, if you want something done right, do it yourself, and I would like nothing better than to end this sad little game once and for all. The Nebulan queen chuckled darkly after that, then she looked at Fumio and Kubota with blank gazes. And when this is all over, I would like to teach both of you something. Fumio and Kubota looked at each other and back at the queen. And that something is, which is more important, fascinating you scientific curiosity, or obeying your queen's instruction. After that the image was cut, leaving the two alone. I did mention the queen would not approve of dash. Oh, be quiet, Fumio. With one large slam by the hand of the Jaw Titan, the final shot of a blaster, and the slash of a blade, the Nebulans that surrounded the room fell dead, while some of them escaped to regroup perhaps. The Jaw Titan. Ymir looked at the others. Historia. Here, she managed to say. She probably being held in the command station, Ozaki said. Follow us, we know this ship's layouts, and dash. The Jaw Titan let out a roar and ran towards the hole in the wall and made it bigger and ran down the hall, causing more damage. I think she knows where it is, Kazama said, causing Ozaki to sigh in defeat. Okay, follow her and make sure she gets there and continue to watch our backs, Ozaki ordered as he and Kazama followed Ymir. Mikasa helped Eren up. Come on, Eren, we have to move. Maybe we should get Eren out of here first, Armin said. He doesn't look good. We got no choice, Jean said. Those guys are the only ones that know how to get off the ship. So for now we just got to keep Jaeger from dying on us. I'm not dead yet, Eren said, trying to stand on his own, but Mikasa kept a firm grip on him as they started to follow the rest. Eren soon found a little strength to move a bit faster, but Mikasa still held on to Eren as they ran ahead to follow almost near Ozaki and Kazama and Mikasa. Suddenly Mikasa stopped in her tracks. Mikasa, why did you stop? Eren looked back at her and saw her expression. Her eyes were wide but not focused. Then she closed her eyes and focused and saw all three heads of the dragons. Mikasa, the Nebulans have used our blood to create a monster, said the middle head. Right now, the creature is proving to be more of a threat than any the Nebulans have created, said the left head. This action must not stand, shouted the right head, they must pay the ultimate price. Mikasa, we must return to our body, said the middle head, you must take us to it. But I do not know where it is, Mikasa spoke. Don't know where what is? Eren asked confused, Mikasa, what is going on with you? Eren, Mikasa? Armin said as he looked back, hey, what's going on back there, shouted Jean. We got to keep moving. Allow us to guide you to where our body is, said the middle head. But I dash Mikasa, spoke the middle head, trust us, you need us more than ever. Free us, Mikasa, all three spoke, free us and all will be well. Mikasa took a breath, all right. I agree. Agree to what? Eren asked, getting worried about Mikasa, then she let go of him. Eren almost fell but he caught himself, Mikasa? Eren looked at her and took a step back when he saw her eye color change to red, then she as quick as lightning she ran in the opposite direction and went left to one of the halls. Mikasa, shouted Eren. Where is she going? Armin asked. I don't know but I'm going to find out, Eren said taking a step but then felt his legs wobble a bit. Armin quickly held him steady. You can't help anybody like this, Jean said running past them, I'll follow her, you guys try and catch up with the others and we will try to meet you there. Eren was going to object but Armin touched his shoulder and silently told him that they should do what Jean said. Eren sighed, just bring her back safe, okay. Jean scoffed, of course I will, I'm not going to let anything happen to her. And with that Jean ran to follow Mikasa. When he left, Eren frowned a little while Armin chuckled a bit. Eren looked at him and Armin said, sorry, we better follow the others before any Nebulans find us. Eren did not like leaving Mikasa alone, especially no knowing what was going on with her, but he had to trust that she will be able to okay and with Jean there to help her out. So he and Armin decided to follow the others. Mikasa ran fast, faster than she had ever been before. She noticed a few Nebulans up ahead and to her they looked like they were moving slowly. She then held her blades and severed them clean from their bodies one by one before the alien bugs and the chance to fire their weapons. Then Mikasa stopped at a scorched door that she had seen when she first came aboard the ship. It is there, all the heads spoke, our body is in there. Mikasa moved towards the door but it would not open for her. Looking down she picked up one of the severed heads of the Nebulans and raised it at the door and it opened up. When Mikasa stepped in she found herself in a laboratory, in fact it was similar to the room inside the capsule. But what something else caught her eye. For in the middle of the room, floating in mid-air and attached with tubes all around, is a large red crystal-like orb. Mikasa gazed at the large object. It had to be the size of a regular titan or even bigger. This is it. Mikasa heard the three heads and looked at the object with confusion. This is your body? This object holds our body within, said the left head. The science that caused this will take too much time to explain, explained the middle head. The Nebulans have altered us many times and they trapped us and force us to change until it suits their needs. Disgusting insects, hissed the right head. What happens now? Mikasa asked. All you have to do is touch the orb, Mikasa, said the middle head. Once you do that, we will do the rest and very soon we will be free and we will help you. Mikasa looked back at the object and she then held out her hand and started walking towards the object. Yes, that is it, Mikasa, all the heads spoke at once. Just touch the object and we will have our body back. Mikasa walked nearer to the object, drawing ever closer to it. Yes, you're almost near. Mikasa stopped as she was close to the orb and started to raise her hand to touch it. Yes. Yes. Just one touch, Mikasa, just one single dash, Mikasa. Mikasa paused as Jean entered the room. Mikasa, just what the hell is going on with dash? Jean stopped as he noticed the large orb. What the hell is, you know what, never mind. Mikasa, we have to hurry and reach the command room, there is no time for whatever you're doing. Jean then ran to Mikasa and grabbed her shoulder. Come on, let's move now or dash. Then Mikasa grabbed Jean's arm and twisted it and tossed him over her shoulder. Jean fell hard and was about to speak when he froze once he looked at Mikasa's face. He had seen her when she was angry, epically when Reiner and Bertholdt kidnapped Eren, but he had never seen her with red eyes before. You will not interfere. Mikasa shouted, her voice sounding deep and dark. Jean? Mikasa spoke in her mind, seeing what her body just did. What is going? Why did you dash? But before she could finish, Mikasa's body turned around and touched the orb, and all at once Mikasa found herself back into the misty realm of her mind, and like before, the mist started showing her images. Mikasa found herself in a dark room and she heard a soft cry. She saw a large table and on it 3 identical creatures. They were the size of an adult cat, but there appeared to resemble large golden bats with green hair. The small creatures started playing with each other, then one of them reached the end of the table but was pushed back by an unseen force. Mikasa walked close to the creatures, but she flinched back as 2 nebulans appeared from across the table. Well, Kubota, what do you think? Kubota? Mikasa looked at the 2 nebulans curiously. I doubt that these 3 Dorats will be the ultimate weapon that our king wants, Fumio, Kubota said, but who am I to question the will of our rulers? When shall we begin? Fumio looked at the Dorats and one of them smiled at him. Fumio chuckled and looked at his comrade. Now. Soon the images disappeared and was replaced with a scene showing the 2 nebulans looking into a large glass container that was glowing. Mikasa stood away, for she could hear the most inhuman scream that she had ever heard coming from that container. The king wants to know if this one will survive? Fumio said. Kubota tapped the container. It will survive. You know, I never thought it would work, but this seems to be a very strong creature we've created. Mikasa looked at the container and saw images of 3 creatures mutating and fusing together in what would appear to be a most painful experience. So what shall we call this one? Kubota asked. Not like we could call it Project Zero anymore. Fumio rubbed his feelers and thought, why not name it after the death dragon of legend, minus the death of course. Kubota nodded. Yes, I think it would appropriate, that is if it survives the testing ground. Then the images changed again. This time Mikasa found herself in a mountain area, but when she looked up all she saw were stars and no clouds. Then Mikasa heard large footsteps, and when she turned saw a large strange-looking kaiju. Its body was almost like Godzilla along with the height, but its face almost like a bird but with large round red eyes and strange things sticking out off the top of its head. Then before Mikasa could act, something flew over the strange creature. The kaiju turned around and the flyer landed. Mikasa looked and saw a 3-headed, dull gold-colored skin dragon. The dragon roared with all its heads and charged at the strange kaiju, and it as well followed. Mikasa moved away from the fight only to find Fumio and Kubota observing. Was it wise to start with Galala? Fumio asked. This creature was beginning to be tiresome to keep around, Kubota explained. Besides, what better way to test our latest creation with the former head weapon? Galala spit out fireballs at the dragon. The attack pushed the dragon, but it kept charging at Galala. Galala then transformed into an orb of energy and started firing randomly and managed to bring the dragon down. Galala reformed and looked at the large smoke from where the dragon stood. Then when Galala got close, one of the heads bit down on Galala's neck, then the second head grabbed the arm and the left grabbed the other. Galala roared in pain and tired to transform again, but then it started to feel weak. As the dragon drained the blood and energy from its victim, its wings started to grow and its skin started to change color. Fumio chuckled. Interesting, informed the king and queen, the weapon is ready. Mikasa ignored them and put more focus on the dragon. To her it seemed almost familiar to her, but before she could figure anything out, the images changed once more. Now she saw herself in a world at war. She saw the ape-like aliens firing their strange weapons at the clouded sky and then yellow lightning strike down onto them and completely obliterating them. Mikasa saw a creature coming down. It was the 3-headed dragon, but this time its appearance changed. Its skin was now golden and its heads now have 2 curved horns and a crescent, and their mouths showed fangs as they fired, lighting down upon the ape-men. Then once again the images changed. This time, Mikasa found herself in a small room with 2 other aliens, but with more human-like appearance. The man was dressed in black with a visor covering his eyes, and the woman was covered in a silver-white dress that covered her whole body but her face. The Nebulans have not stopped their attacks, spoke the man. They must be destroyed. Our fire weapon will stop them once and for all, said the woman as a screen showed a round object completely surrounded by fire as it flew in space, but then 3 lightning bolts struck the flamed object and completely destroyed it. Oh, can this be? Shouted the woman. Look at the screen. The man shouted in fear. Mikasa looked at the image on the screen and saw the golden dragon again, and once more it changed its appearance. Its neck was longer and it appeared to have a mane around each head. The golden dragon let out a roar that sounded to Mikasa like a bell, and then it fired a lightning bolt at the ship, destroying it. Mikasa held up her arm as the destruction surrounded her, but she felt no pain. When she opened her eyes, she found herself somewhere different. Mikasa looked around her new area. Like what happened with the ape men, the area around her was destroyed and in flames. Then she heard a terrible roar behind her. She turned around and saw the golden dragon again, and once more it changed. Its form was more muscular and gone was the mane, but Mikasa noticed something about its face as she looked at it. To her, she could almost see every horror imaginable, and this creature enjoyed causing the destruction it caused as all three heads fired in separate directions. Then another roar was heard from behind Mikasa. She looked up, and to her surprise, she saw a large tusked turtle standing like on its hind legs as it roared at the dragon. The three-headed dragon roared back and fired more lightning at the turtle creature, and it fired a large fireball at it. The image changed again, showing Fuimo and Kubota in their human forms looking at the red orb and a familiar cylinder. "It seems its intelligence is growing as well as its power," Fumio said. "At least we can weaken it, but not too much," Kubota said. "We don't want to lose our ultimate weapon, do we?" "The Queen wants us to stick with both Gigan and Hedorah from now on until we can better control him," Fumio explained. Kubota sighed. "Such a pity. After all, it is a powerful creature. Like a god." Then the image changed and Mikasa was back in the mists. She fell to her knees as held her head as if she was in pain. She knew what that dragon was, and she knew what it really was. "You lied to me," Mikasa spoke. She looked up and saw all three heads looking down on her. Like a man would look down on an ant. Mikasa stood up, her face showing fury. "You lied to me. You were not being forced to do those things, you enjoyed it. You killed all those people, you destroyed their homes and worlds. And you enjoyed it." All three heads just looked at her without a response. Mikasa glared at them. "Don't you even care?" "No." Mikasa took a deep breath as all three heads spoke, and the left and right head started to surround her, and the middle head slowly lowered itself towards her until she was looking at its eye. "We are alike, you and I, Mikasa," it said. Mikasa was more furious than scared right now as she stood her ground. "No, we are not the same. I'm not a monster?" The right head spoke. "Oh, but you are Mikasa. You may have not been born as one, but you were created to be one," the left head said. "From the moment you saw those men kill your parents, the moment you killed that man, you resigned yourself to be one," the middle head said. "Everyone could see it, the way you killed the titans, kaijus, and even your own kind. You've killed so many it is almost poetry." The mist then changed to show moments where Mikasa has killed. She watched herself take many lives, and on her face, her expression, she saw coldness, and sometimes fury that would shake any man's soul to the bone. Mikasa looked shocked at this. Was this really how people see her? Of course they did, why wouldn't they? She wanted them to see her that way, that's what she wanted. Right? "We were not born as a weapon, we were forced and tortured to be one," all heads started speaking as one. "We were chosen to be their instrument of terror, and we bathed in the blood of those we ended, and we found that glorious. But when they saw how powerful we were, what we were becoming, they grew fearful and jealous." Suddenly lightning started striking the whole room, missing the heads and Mikasa. "They wanted to create another slave, but we are so much more than that. We are a god." Mikasa covered her eyes as the lightning struck between her and the heads. When she opened them back up, all the heads moved away from her and slowly started to fade away. "We are returning to our body now, and once we are fully formed we will bathe the world in our lightning." "No, I won't let you." Mikasa tried to move, but she couldn't. She tried to pull out her blades, but she could barely move a finger. All she could do now was watch helplessly as the dragon started to disappear from her mind. "Tell them, Mikasa. Tell your people that their new god is coming. Their new king. Tell them, Ghidorah is coming. Mikasa." Mikasa opened her eyes wide and saw Jean looking down at her, then she realized she was lying on the floor. She tried to get up but felt a sharp pain on her head. "No, don't move," Jean said, grabbing her shoulders. "You had a nasty shock." "What happened, Mikasa? What is going on with you? Is it something those bugs did?" "No," Mikasa replied weakly. "Jean, we must dash," but as tried to stand she fell, but Jean caught her in time. Jean blushed a bit seeing how close he and Mikasa were, but he shook his head. There was a time and place, and this is not the place for this. Come on, we've got to catch up with the others, and you are in no condition to walk. Jean then started to put Mikasa over his shoulder and picked up a Nebulan blaster that was lying on the ground and then started to leave the room. As they left, Mikasa saw the red orb glowing and sparking with lighting that started to slowly surround it. No, Mikasa weakly raised her arm up, we can't leave yet. Got to. Stop it. Don't worry, Mikasa, Jean said reassuring, we will beat those bugs yet. No, not them. Then Mikasa soon passed out, taking one last look at the orb containing what she knows is more dangerous than anything they have faced before. Are Jean and Mikasa behind us? Eren said as he started gaining a little bit of strength back. Armin looked behind and saw only the dead bodies of Nebulans that had been killed by either a blaster or were stomped by Ymir's Titan form. I don't see them, Armin replied. But I'm sure they will get to us in time. In fact, I think we're nearing the command station. Are you sure? Eren asked. I think so, Armin replied. I see Ymir already and it looks like she is about to burst right in. True to what he said, Ymir was the first to arrive at the door, her Titan form growling like a mad animal filled with rage. Wait! Ozaki shouted, don't go in. It might be a trap, you don't dash. The Jaw Titan roared and burst through the door. I don't think she heard you, Kazama remarked as he and Ozaki entered close behind with Eren and Armin behind them. In the control room, all the monitors still played the battle from outside. All the Nebulans that stayed behind sat up and drew their weapons. The only one not looking worried or angry at this intrusion was the Nebulan Queen. Natala sat on her throne and sipped her cup. She looked up at Ymir with an unimpressed look. My dear Ymir, the Queen spoke, hasn't anyone ever told you to knock before entering? Ymir slammed her fists on the ground, making a large dent on the floor, and Ymir moved her face close to the Queen and let out a roar at her. The other Nebulans did not move, only keeping their gaze and weapons at Ozaki, Kazama, Eren and Armin. When Ymir stopped roaring, Natala brushed her hair. Something tells me you want to kill me, but what you should be asking is, where is your beloved Historia? Where is she? Ymir growled. Natala simply pointed up. Everyone looked up and saw Historia being held in the air by Fumio and Kubota, with Kubota covering her mouth. Ymir was about to reach her when one of the Nebulans blasted her arm off. Ozaki and Kazama were about to fire, but the other Nebulans surrounded them instantly. And here we are again, Natala smiled. Unless you want your lover to crack her skull on my floor, you will revert back to your human form at once. Ymir growled, but she knew what to do, so with her remaining hand she cut the nape of her neck and slowly started to revert back, and once her real body was revealed, the other Nebulans quickly surrounded her as well. Natala motioned Fumio and Kubota to come down with their prisoner. Once they landed, they let go of Historia and quickly she ran to embrace Ymir. Kazama was itching to pull the trigger of his blaster and fire at the Nebulans, and that want was seen by Fumio. I wouldn't do that. In fact, you all should put your blasters and blades down. Now. Kazama looked at Ozaki, who nodded and dropped his gun. Kazama looked to Armin, who sadly put his blades in 3D gear off. Kazama groaned and dropped his weapon too. Natala chuckled as she stood up from her throne and looked at her prisoners. Ah, humans, she started, no matter the universe, you all are quite persistent. Not even caring about the odds that has so much stacked up against you. Natala motioned towards the screen of the fight outside. Look now, no matter the weapons, be it of your own primitive technology or using your own monsters to fight your battles. All of this and you still fail in the end. You haven't defeated us yet, Natala, said Ozaki. We've beaten you once. We can do it again. Right. Kazama shouted, and we are going to squish you, just like we did to your kin. Then before anyone could even catch the speed, Kazama was being shocked by Natala, holding him up and squeezing his neck with one hand and with a look of fury in her eye. Ozaki tried to stop her, but the other Nebulans still trapped him and the others. Natala watched as Kazama's face started to turn blue with the loss of oxygen, then Natala's expression turned back to her calm and she dropped him to the ground. Kazama held his neck and started to take breaths, and Natala moved away from them. You know, when we came to this world, Natala started, I thought it would take my mind off of our first real failure in generation, and it looked to me like we could succeed. But as I looked upon the human race here, I am reminded of the failure. Natala tightened her fist. And when you followed us here, I am reminded of the death of my king. Natala clenched her teeth. Fumio and Kubota started to back away slowly from their queen. The Nebulans kept their weapons on the others but started to tremble as they feel their queen's rage. Even now I can see all our failures. Natala watched as she sees the corpse of Cyberzilla, Gigan, and Hidora. These apes have become more of a problem than any other inferior races in the galaxy. Natala turned around at the prisoners. They flinched as they saw Natala's eyes turned all black like the other Nebulans. Her fingers twitched and extended and it seemed like she was getting bigger. I think the time has come to do what I should have done the moment I came here, Natala snarled. I will dash, but then Natala sighed. You know, talking to all of you about it is meaningless. You all know what I'm going to do and none of you will be around to stop me. Natala smiled at Eren. You should be happy right now, Eren. After all, right now I'm done looking like your mother. After that, her back exploded and large sharp wings appeared. From each of her sides 2 long spider-like legs erupted. Then her own legs started to resemble the other Nebulans but with blades on the back of each leg. Her hands also became like the others of her kind and smaller pincers rose from her stomach. Then a long tail sprouted with 2 blades from either sides and finally her neck extended and the hair started to fall off and her face became just like her kind but with 4 pincers, one on top and the other on the bottom. Everyone looked up. She was about 7 meters in height. It was hard to believe something of that size could be disguised as regular-sized human adult. But no one was more disgusted by this creature's appearance than Eren. Once again he saw the last image of his mother, taken away by another monster. Shocked are we? Natala said, observing her clawed hands. Well, a lady never tells anyone how she fits into her dress now, does she? Ah, my queen, Fumio started, it is a wonder to see your true form again. Indeed, nodded Kubota, you show more beauty in your true face than in that ape form. But both of them flinched as when Natala glanced at them. Don't butter me up, you two are still in trouble for your little stunt. Natala looked down upon her prisoners, unaware that Historia was pulling something out. Now all of you have the greatest honor of being the ones who will die by my hands. Now which dash then acting quickly Historia let go of Ymir and tossed her dagger right at the large alien queen. The blade stabbed her neck but Natala glanced at it as if it was a mosquito biting her. Historia was shocked as Natala removed the dagger, showing no signs that the dagger penetrated anything. No signs of blood. Natala gazed at Historia as her mandibles clicked. How nice. A volunteer. Then at once Ozaki and Kazama quickly snatched one of the Nebulan's guns from their claw hands, taking them by surprise at the process and then fired upon them. This action was not unseen by Natala. Kill them all, she bellowed as she was about to strike Historia down, but Ymir quickly grabbed Historia and rammed into a few of the Nebulans who by poor chance were the ones to suffer their queen strike. Seeing the action, both Eren and Armin quickly picked up their blades and started slashing the nearest Nebulan before they could fire their blasters. Ozaki grabbed 2 of the blades from the 3D gear and tossed them to Ymir and Historia. I was told you two know how to use them, Ozaki said, blasting a Nebulan. Been a while, Historia said, then she swung her blade and decapitate a Nebulan, but I still got it. Natala screamed in anger, how hard is it to kill these apes? Natala glared at Eren and started charging at him, but before she could get close, Ozaki and Kazama leaped on her back and started firing their weapons on her. Natala stopped attacking and chuckled, haven't you realized yet, your pea shooters can kill my drones but my hit is stronger than theirs. Kazama kept on firing his blaster and unaware that the queen's bladed tail was nearing him, but Ozaki saw it in time. Kazama! Ozaki pushed Kazama out of the way just as the blades missed him. But they managed to stab Ozaki. Kazama landed on his feet and looked in shock. Ozaki! No! Armin shouted. Eren looked back in horror while the Nebulan queen laughed. Oh, this will be much easier than I thought. Natala then swung her tail, causing Ozaki to fall off the blade and onto the floor, his back showing a large stab wound. Natala raised her claws. My subjects, drop your weapons. I will deal with them personally. As all the Nebulans dropped their weapons, Kazama ran towards his fallen comrade and tried to lift him up. Come on, Ozaki. Get up. Natala ignored the two and focused more on the others. Ymir raised her blade. The bitch is mine, but Historia grabbed her shoulder. You mean ours? Ymir smiled, as she and Historia stand ready to attack. No. Eren walked forward as he dropped his blade and looked upon the Nebulan Queen with hate. She's mine. Then Eren bit down his hand and the transformation into the attack titan began. Now this will be entertaining, Fumio said as the titan body started to form. Indeed, the queen will enjoy herself, Kubota said. Then the transformation was finished. Though the control room was big, the attack titan had to stand on his knees, but he was still ready to fight. Natola chuckled, pitiful ape. Time to die. Before Eren could even roar, Natala's wings started to flap in rapid speed and she rammed into him, knocking him into the wall and breaking it, leaving a large hole. Eren! Armin shouted. We have to go help him. Ymir shouted, but then Fumio and Kubota landed in between them. Oh, you're not going anywhere, Kubota spoke. Your queen ordered you not to attack us, Historia said, lifting her blade. Technically she commanded the drones not to attack, Fumio explained, but we are of the elite, which gives us special privileges in this matter. As this was going on, Kazama managed to get some life from Ozaki. His comrade showed blood from his mouth and the large wound was leaking blood to the ground. Kazama, Ozaki said weakly, I don't think I cut the crap. Kazama shouted, you managed to survive way worse than this. Now come, we've got to finish this. Ozaki placed a hand on Kazama's shoulder, you've got to finish this. Ozaki used his other hand and gave Kazama a small flat device. You know what to do, Ozaki said nearing his end, tell me Yuki. I'm sorry that I before he could say any more. Ozaki took his last breath and passed. Kazama laid his friend down and put the device in his pocket and stood up. Kubota chuckled, well, one less ape to worry about. Kazama looked at them with fury, then he looked at Armin, Ymir, and Histoira, you three hold them off as long as you can. Armin nodded, understand what Kazama was going to do. But make sure you leave one of them alive, Kazama said, heading towards one of the panels, I really feel like squishing a bug. Then Armin, Historia, and Ymir quickly stood in front of the two Nebulans, blocking them from Kazama. Kubota looked to Fumio. Shall we end their sad lives, Fumio? Oh please, after you, Kubota. Then the two of them charged right at the trio. Okay Mikasa, I think we are almost there, Jean said, but Mikasa was still passed out, so Jean kept running through the halls until he reached a curve and saw more Nebulans. Jean was about to fire, but he noticed that none of them are moving, they were just standing still. What the hell is going on now? Jean asked. His answer came literally through the wall, and the body of Eren's Titan form fell, crushing many Nebulans and damaged the narrow halls. Eren! Jean shouted, what's going Then Natala crawled out of the very same hole in the wall, oh come now, Eren. I thought you would put up more of a fight. Jean looked at the full form of the Nebulan Queen with fright and disgust. Natala saw him and pointed to and said, don't worry, I'll deal with you both later. As soon as the attack titan got back up, he was once again pushed back by the incredible strength of the Nebulan Queen. Jean was about to follow them, but then heard a battle going on ahead. He glanced back where the alien queen was pushing Eren and then back where they came from. Damn, Jean said, good luck, Jaeger. If you die and make Mikasa cry, I'll never forgive you. Then Jean ran what he thinks is the way to the command station. Ymir struggled as Kubota wrestled her to the ground after he knocked the blade out of her hand. Ymir tried to reach her hand to transform, but Kubota was not having it as he grasped tightly around her hands, almost breaking them. Look at you, you pitiful creature, Kubota mocked, you can't defeat me as you are, so you would resort to your ace in the hole, not having much faith in your human form, are you? Ymir glanced at Histoira and Armin as they tried to reach her, but Fumio was blocking their way as well as their blades. Ymir returned her attention to Kubota, you know what, bug? Ymir then started slowly pushing Kubota's arms back, surprising the alien. Since it's just you, I don't need to change, Ymir smiled, I can kick your ass as I am. Ymir raised her head back and delivered a strong headbutt to the Nebulan. The result of the action caused Kubota to let Ymir go and stumble back in shock and in pain. Ymir grabbed her head as blood started to pour, but thinking quickly she picked up her blade and managed to slice one of Kubota's lower arms off. Fumio saw the action and it was just enough time for Historia to stab his left wing and Armin to cut his left side. Both Fumio and Kubota both jumped away and moved close to each other. Damn apes! Kubota shouted, holding the severed limb. I will personally eat your brains when I'm done with you. Wanna bet? Fumio and Kubota turned to see. Kazama already finished his work on the panel and pointed his blaster at them. Now, Kazama said in rage, which one goes first? The two Nebulans were trapped on either side with their backs facing the wall. Fumio placed his hand on the wall. This is far from over, human scum. Fumio pushed the wall and then behind them a secret door opened up and the two quickly went inside. No! Kazama shouted as he fired his blaster, but it was too late. The door was closed by the time he fired. They had escaped. Kazama, did you do it? Armin asked. Kazama slammed his blaster on the ground and nodded. Do what? Historia asked, what did you do? It was part of the plan, Armin explained. First we rescue you. Emer and Eren and then either Ozaki and Kazama here would hack the Nebulan systems. Hack? Emer said, confused. Armin shrugged. They said it is another word for sabotage. Basically, Kazma said, picking up his dead comrade, to put it simple, I just ready this ship to blow up straight to hell. Wait, it's going to explode. Historia said in shock, with us on it. Relax, we got enough time, Kazama said, maybe 30 minutes or more. All I know is we better get off this ship as soon as possible. But what about Eren? Armin said, and Jean and Mikasa, we can't leave without Dash. Don't worry, guys, I'm here to help. Jean ran in holding his blaster with one hand and Mikasa with the other. Jean stopped and saw that the battle was now over. Great, there's 2 down and 1 left, Kazama said. Mikasa. Armin ran to Jean and looked over Mikasa. What happened to her? Talk later, Kazama interrupted. First we find your other friend and we are getting the hell out of here. Jean looked at Armin. Did he start it? Armin nodded and offered to hold on to Mikasa for a while, but Jean said he had her and they started to follow Kazama with Emer and Historia behind them. Hey, babe, Emer said, when this is all over I'm looking forward for a long time in bed. Just you and me. Historia smiled as she ran ahead, please. When this is all over, you and I are getting married, Queen's orders. Emer slowed for a moment, then speed up with a great big smile on her face. After being rammed through many halls and walls, Eren found himself back in large room that held both him and Emer prisoner. Eren stood up, his titan from healing from the many collisions, but as soon as he stood up he heard a buzz and was knocked back down by a fast object. Eren looked and saw a huge bloody gash on his back, and the room was then filled with the evil alien queen's laughter. Poor Eren Yeager, Natala's voice echoed throughout the room. You had plans to be humanity's great savior, only to be replaced by a giant lizard that only sees you as insects. Eren got up again and was knocked back down with new gash, this time on his chest. You have failed at everything you tried to be. How many deaths do you have on your hands? No matter how strong you think you are, you are still that scared, weak little boy that failed to save his mother. Filled with rage, Eren sat back up and roared loudly and started thrashing wildly, hopping to catch his foe, only for him to be knocked down again. This time his left arm was ripped off and his lower jaw nearly removed. I could kill you easily, you know. But I like to play with my toys before I toss them away in the trash. So let us play a game. How many times can I wound you before you beg for death? Eren growled as he slammed his remaining fist. She's right, Eren thought as tears started to form. I can't beat her. No matter what, I'm just not Dash. Then as Eren listened to the sounds of Natala's wings, his mind suddenly brought him back to his dream. The dream with large metal objects and him being taller than he had ever been before. Wait, is this a memory? Godzilla's memory? Then Eren saw the same flying insect monster he saw coming right towards him, but then his body moved without him meaning to. Yes, Godzilla fought something like that before. I'm seeing him fight it. Eren watched the fight and a thought came to him. If Godzilla can fight something that fast, then I can too, perhaps since I have his memories? Eren moved his lower jaw back into place, then he closed his eyes, stood up, and listened. Eren could hear the buzzing sounds of Natala's wings. The sounds started getting closer. And closer, and closer. Then quickly Eren swung his arm and hit the Nebulan Queen hard, knocking her against the walls. I can fight her. Play Barricades from Attack on Titans. The impact and the blow shattered her lower arms, damaged her legs and broke a few ribs or whatever she had in her disgusting alien body. But Natala still lived and was surprised at this human's ability. Surprised and enraged. How dare this lower life form manage to hit her? She is a queen, this creature should beg for forgiveness and beg for slavery, not fighting her. Eren looked at Natala and as his other arm fully healed, he raised his arms and motioned her to come at him. Natala flew high and ready to slam him down with her tail. Eren watched her coming straight towards him, and as he saw her coming, he saw the image of the monster that Godzilla fought in the memory. Natala raised her tail to pierce him, but once she got close, using both hands Eren grabbed her tail just as the blade could barely touch his face. Growling, Natala tried to push her tail forward, but Eren held his grip. Then with great strength, Eren ripped the tail off of her. Natala screamed in pain over this action as her tail was tossed casually to the ground. Being driven mad with pain and anger, Natala charged once again but was instantly swatted away by the Titan Shifter's hand and knocked down hard to the ground. Like how a human would swat a fly. As this was going on, the remaining Nebulans on the ship were outside fighting in the underground. All held their heads and screamed in pain due to the shared hive mind, all except for the elite, Fumio, and Kubota. Do you feel that, Kubota? Fumio held his head. The queen will soon lose her life. And us as well if we don't leave now, Kubota said as they walked to a large round metal object. Don't worry, Fumio, as long as we survive, so do the Nebulan race. Eren looked down at the Nebulan Queen. Her body was all twisted and bent, her limbs were all torn off except for her spider-like legs, but they were bent, her wings bent and seems to be ripped, and her neck was snapped and twisted, and yet somehow she was still alive and slowly moving parts of her still active body. Natala coughed some blood and glared at the creature that put her in this state. You will die. Eren glared down at her. Not this day. Eren lifted his foot up and was ready to finish her off like the bug she is, but then a loud boom echoed across the ship, and then more of the sound echoed and the ship started to shake. Eren. Eren turned to see Armin and the others by the door looking at him. Hell, you've really did a number on that bitch, said Kazama. Eren. Jean shouted, the ship is about to go and so should we. Now. Eren glanced down at the Nebulan Queen and then ran towards his friends, and quickly he grabbed a hold of them and started running. All the Nebulans held their heads in pain, and Barley registered the humans as they ran past them. We should head for the transporter. Histwara shouted through the explosions. No time. Kazama shouted and looked at Eren, you know what to do. The attack titan nodded and started running towards a wall. Wait, what is he doing? Ymir said and feared she knew what Eren was doing. Natala tried to get up, but she knew her life was ending. ALET. Alert! The ship's warning system started. Monster Zero container is failing. Repeat, Monster Zero container is failing. Natala widened her eyes and then let out a weak laugh. This is our vengeance. The top of the ship exploded and then the side started to crumble and fall apart, and then suddenly Eren the attack titan burst out of the side of the crumbling ship while holding his friends close to his chest. Eren looked down as they descended to the ground from their high height, but then, came flying Jet Jaguar saw them coming from the ship and caught them. BYYOIA. Yeah, mission accomplished, Jean said smiling. You understand that thing? Ymir asked. Jean frowned, no idea. While this was going on, many of the monsters tried to dodge the falling debris from the still exploding ship except for Godzilla, Anguirus, Rodden, and Biollante. Sir, looks like they got away safely, said Misuki. Knew that plan worked, said Gordon. Okay, now let's try to destroy the rest of that ship and some of that falling rubble. We don't want this whole place to look like back home. As the Gotengo started firing on the remains of the Nebulan ship, Sanda saw more falling rubble coming down where he and the others were. He immediately changed into his Titan gargantuan form to shield his friends. A couple managed to hit him, but Sanda was unharmed by the falling objects and fire that it carried. Maul looked up at him and fear appeared on her face. Sanda! Look out behind you! Sonda turned to see Monster X standing behind him, and before he could even react, Sonda was grabbed by Monster X, with one hand holding him tightly. Reiner put him down. Connie shouted, but Monster X ignored him. Rodden saw him and flew to attack the killer of Herd, but then Monster X made an incredible leap and jumped over the flying kaiju. "We got to go after him," Maul said, activating her 3D gear. "Right behind you, sis," shouted Laura, and was followed by Sasha and Connie. Biollante managed to hit away many of the rubble, including the legs that held the ship up. Once there was no sign of more pieces of the ship falling on her, Biollante stopped and saw Monster X landing by her. She saw him holding what she thought was the Beast Titan, but no, this one was different, and yet she could tell he was a fellow Titan shifter. Monster X held Sonda out to her. "Eat him." Sonda's eyes widened. This was what Reiner was going to do to him, like so many poor souls before him. "Eat him. Be human," Monster X said. "Is that true?" Monster X looked at the gargantuan Titan in his hand, the traitor glaring at him. "Won't work," Sonda said, "it won't work." Monster X growled, "It will work. You die. She free. You are a fool." Sonda shouted, "You are insane." Monster X roared and held Sonda close to Biollante's mouth. "Eat him. Be human. Be free." Sonda knew he was going to die, but at the very least he was going to die brave. Then when he looked at Biollante, he saw not the gaze of a monster but a scared and sad look from her eyes. Biollante moved a tendril and wrapped it around Monster X's arm and turned it away from her mouth. Monster X was confused by this action. "No. More. Change," she bellowed, "no. More. Pain. Want. This. To. End." Before Monster X could say anything else, he was suddenly pushed back by an atomic beam. This then allowed Sonda to get free and ran as fast as he could away. Biollante was about to act, when at once a razor disc stabbed her neck. Jet Jaguar pulled out the other disc from Kamoeba's shell, making the turtle kaiju happy to have the last one of those objects out. Jet watched as Godzilla finished his blast. The robot tossed the last razor disc at Monster X, right at his left eye. Sonda managed to catch up with Maul, Laura, Sasha, and Connie. "That was a close one," Connie said. "You were close to being eaten." The brown Gargantua Titan nodded while Maul hugged his cheek. "Okay, enough of that right now," Laura said, teasing her sister. "I saw Jet Jaguar placing Aaron and the others in that direction." "Come on." They soon caught up with the others. Then they saw Jean trying to wake Mikasa. Aaron remained in his Titan form just in case as he stood guard, watching as the kaijus returned surrounding Monster X and Biollante. Monster X pulled out the disc from his eye and roared at all the kaijus, mainly at Godzilla. Godzilla roared back and was ready for the second round, and as he took a step, he stopped and looked up. Monster X paused at this and noticed all the other kaijus looking up. He was confused at his action, but then he felt something. Like a great danger was ready to befall him. He looked up, as did Biollante. "Hey, she's waking up." Mikasa opened her eyes and saw everyone around her. "Are you a light?" Armin said. "You had us worried," Sasha said with concern. "Jean told us what happened," Connie said. "What was going on?" Mikasa raised her head, and a look of terror filled her face. The others flinched. They had never seen Mikasa so scared before. Aaron noticed her looking up above him, so he turned his head up. Cap?" Randy asked. "Why is that ship still exploding?" Gordon looked at the monitor and saw where the Nebulan ship was stood as the explosion continued to expand, and then the flames started circling each other, like they were forming something. Gordon took a deep breath. "Shit," he said. "Here we go again." Mikasa whispered, "He's free." Play GMK, God of the Sky. All the flames from the explosion started combing together to form a shape. The flaming form seemed to be flapping like a bat or a bird. Then the flames started to die down and the form started to gain a solid shape. It soon became a three-headed dragon. The dragon's body was golden color with 2 legs, 2 tails, large golden bat-like wings, and on all its 3 heads are golden horns that appear devil-like. It matched their blood-red eyes as each head roared down to all the creatures below it. for let it all be known. King Ghidorah has at last arrived.